dun, 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 dun. One. It doesn't fit. I feel like I could just randomly play the Metal Gear Solid soundtrack, but I feel like it also might not fit. Might not fit certain scenes, but who cares? Who cares? Here's an idea for you. Who cares? Right. Here we go. Also, I feel like I got the filters pretty good for Metal Gear. Here it is. Metal Gear Solid by Raymond Benson. All right, thank you very much for your generosity in throwing around some subs. I really do appreciate that. We're already like basically halfway to the next one. So the way this is going to work, since the chapters are kind of they're in variable length, that's for sure, and there's only like 26 of them, but I want to make sure that people get their sub value for $1. So we're going to alternate. This is sub extension. I'll read the first chapter. The next one, I'll have 2 chapters. So it'll be 1, then 2, then 1, then 2. The first chapter is fairly short. The second one's pretty long, and then the third chapter is like 1 page. So, but the next one will be longer regardless. Chapter 1, Metal Gear Solid. Published in 2008, it seems. Got some acknowledgements. For their help and support, the author wishes to thank Hideo Kojima, Ryan Payton, Dallas Middaugh, Jonathan E. Quist, Eric Cherry, Peter Miller, and of course, Randy and Max. Chapter 1, Some Years Ago. I think that music is a little loud. A little loud for story time. Alright. Dr. Quark. Off to a running start, huh? Some years ago, Dr. Clark quietly re-entered the visiting chamber, stood still behind the U.S. President and General Jim Houseman, and listened to them whisper. The 2 men were transfixed in front of the observation window that overlooked the operating theater. Is she in pain? The President asked. I thought she was supposed to be sedated, the General replied. Now they're blocking our view, damn it! Oh wait, ads just hit? Aww. Alright, we'll wait. Just listen to some of this music, the overture, remembering all of our favorite Metal Gear moments. The President and General Jim Houseman. Oh, okay. I've already discovered something. I thought that was like 2 titles for one man. I thought he was a president and general, and his name was Jim Houseman, but no. It's the President, who is unnamed, and General Jim Houseman. Old General Jim. The President. Alright. This is good music to start the... This is the appropriate music to start the novel too, right here. So, it all works out, actually. The ad break was appropriately timed. And... You're back. Alright, South American Tanuki, sorry about that. You know what? We'll just take it from the top. Metal Gear from the top. Dr. Clark quietly re-entered the visiting chamber, stood still behind the U.S. President and General Jim Houseman, and listened to them whisper. The 2 men were transfixed in front of the observation window that overlooked the operating theater. I know. Thank you for gifting a sub. Is she in pain? The President asked. I thought she was supposed to be sedated, the General replied. Now they're blocking our view, damn it. What's happening? The President asked. Can you see? Do not be alarmed, Mr. President. Dr. Clark's seductive and eloquent voice echoed in the chamber, startling the President. Oh, you gave me a start, Doctor, the gray-haired politician said. It had always struck Clark that the President was a very nervous type when he wasn't in front of a camera. She rather enjoyed scaring the poor man. That was ironic, because she was a woman, albeit a woman with a commanding presence and powerful charisma. You know what? That is ironic. Okay? This book's off to a good start. Off to a real good start. Clark stepped closer out of the shadows and addressed them. I apologize, Mr. President. I thought you were aware I was behind you. The president laughed nervously. It must be because we're down here so far underground. I guess I'm a little claustrophobic. General Houseman said, "We'll get you back up to the surface as soon as you want to go, Mr. President." Clark noted that the general didn't look too pleased to be there either. "Is she giving birth?" the president asked. "She's been in labor for a long time," Clark answered. "It'll be very soon, I'm sure." The president squeamishly turned away from the window and waved his hand around the chamber, indicating the hundreds of stalactites on the limestone ceiling. "Do any of these things ever fall?" They're thousands of years old, Mr. President," Clark replied. "They won't fall on their own, I can assure you of that. And in the likelihood of an earthquake occurring in the southeastern corner of New Mexico, it's quite remote." Her voice reverberated with upper-class sophistication and the timbre of a Shakespearean actress. Okay, well, I gotta punch it up then. The president nodded. "I know, it's just amazing to think that on the other side of that cavern wall is one of America's most popular national parks. Hundreds of tourists pour through it every day." King's Egg, thanks for the sub. 42 is indeed the answer to the ultimate question of life. So you must understand it all. You get it all. "The Carlsbad area was perfect for the project. I'm in debt to your predecessor for backing it." The president tilted his head and said, "You know, Doctor, I inherited this project. Tell me how you got established in this facility." Clark smiled. "Ever since the caverns were discovered, there were many caves not open to the public. Caves just sitting here, available to the government. I believe the first time this cavern was used by the government was during World War II. The Roosevelt administration built a safe house here in case America was attacked. Since then, it's been used for a number of research projects." Clark glanced at the general, most of them military in nature. "I see. We took it over in the mid-60s. The president turned back to the window. "Well, is the project finally going to succeed?" he asked. "This is what, the 9th try?"
"He's on fire!"
"Not yet." Liz McRee, thank you for the sub. I don't know if anyone gets that on fire in Metal Gear Solid. Not jumping to mine. Thank you very much. "Have faith, Mr. President," Dr. Clark said. "I corrected the genetic code in the last batch. I also made sure that the surrogate mother possessed certain genetic latches, if you will, that could connect with those of Big Boss." The president shook his head in amazement. "I still can't believe you have so many sample cells of his. What did he think you were going to do with them?" "The man knew only that he was going sterile and couldn't produce children. He was unaware of our undertaking here," Dr. Clark said. "The L'Enfant Terrible project." "Correct. We extracted the cells when Big Boss was in surgery, when he was wounded in the last war. The Pentagon gave strict orders that he was to not know about the project's outcome, whether or not we succeeded. Although, knowing Big Boss, I wouldn't be surprised if he has learned about it by now. The security surrounding our activities has not always been ideal." The security has been the best the U.S. government can supply," Houseman countered. "You know that, Doctor." Dr. Clark went on without acknowledging the military man's defensive remark. "We reproduced the cells through analog cloning and the super baby method. Fertilized them into an ovum, as you know, and then implanted the fetuses into the mother." "Does she know she's going to give birth to 8 babies?" the president asked. Dr. Clark corrected him. "She's not giving birth to all 8, only 2. 6 of the fetuses were aborted months ago so that we could encourage the growth of the other 2. "So she's giving birth to just twins, is that it?" "That's precisely it. But not exactly." "What do you mean?" There will be certain genetic differences in the two children. It was the only way we could succeed, as you know. So does that mean one's going to be better than the other? I thought they were supposed to be exactly the same. Clark shook her head. Mr. President, one will not be better than the other, but it's entirely possible that one possesses more dominant genes than his brother. But it's nothing to worry about. Some new activity behind the glass drew their attention back to the operating area. All of a sudden, the sterility of the bright room intensified. It was as if the shine on the stainless steel surgical equipment had imbued the space with artificial energy as the doctors and nurses surrounded the table containing the writhing female patient. The steel door behind the observer slid open. A nurse entered and announced, "Doctor, they're ready for you." Clark acknowledged her. "Thanks. I'll be right there." "Is she giving birth?" the president asked. "Mr. President, I must go deliver 2 strong baby boys." The president stuck out his hand. "Look, Dr. Clark, this isn't something I particularly want to watch. I need to get back to Washington. It's good to see you." Clark feigned surprise, but she had expected the president's prudish behavior. She shook the man's hand and asked, "Are you certain? We could have a meal later before you depart." "Thanks, doctor, but I must decline. To tell you the truth, this place gives me the creeps. Thanks for making us aware of the imminent, births. By the way, do I get the pick of the litter?" "I beg your pardon, Mr. President?" "You know, one of those things she's giving birth to will belong to us. I'd like to pick which kid belongs to us, that's all." "Well, you have that right." Clark held up her hands and laughed good-naturedly. "I have nothing to do with whatsoever with the politics behind this project." The president nodded, satisfied. "All right, then I want the one you said has dominant genes. It's got to have an advantage over the other one." Clark was astounded by the man's ignorance. She reminded him, "There's no guarantee, but I shall do as you ask, Mr. President. Now, I must get inside before." The President of the United States said, "Goodbye, Doctor, and good luck. Please keep me informed." He looked at General Houseman and said, "Let's go." As the President and his escort walked away from the observation window and towards the cavern's reinforced steel door, Dr. Clark rushed back to join the drama that was unfolding in the operating theater. It was terribly exciting. Finally, after several attempts, her efforts would bear fruit in the form of 2 live babies, cloned from the genetic makeup of the most powerful fighting man the world had ever known, the legendary soldier Big Boss. As Clark washed her hands, snapped on gloves, and entered the operating theater, she wondered what would become of the remaining supply of Big Boss's cells. Only a few trusted assistants had access to them. Would the president and his military cronies forget that there were some left? Dr. Clark was thrilled by the possibilities. Perhaps there could be another birthing procedure should the need arise. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Metal Gear lore. All right. You had brief flashes of enjoyable cringe there. Oh, I'm going to use my Toll Road sticker as a bookmark for now. Thank you all again for hanging out and enjoying fine literature. Let's get back to some EDF. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Man, music is so good. Thanks again for all of your generosity. Supporting the arts, extending the stream. Also, I missed it barely. I missed having 420 on the clock again, but that's fine. Chapter 2. Ooh, Klondike Bar, thanks for the sub. Time for more of that delicious Kojima lore. And now we get 2 chapters, even though, again, I'm warning you, Chapter 3 looks like it's pretty short. Chapter 2. Today. This is happening today. The swimmer delivery vehicle shot out of the Ohio-class submarine's torpedo tube and sliced its way through the sub-zero saltwater toward the dock. With no propulsion system, the device was silent and stealthy, as it had made its way within range of the destination. It didn't feel as cold as he had expected. That figure clung to the SDV was dressed in a polythermal bodysuit, goggles, and scuba gear. The so-called sneaking suit protected him from the extreme temperature, but Dr. Hunter had told him that the shot she'd given him was also contributing to his comfort. Something about the hypodermic containing an anti-freezing peptide to keep the blood and other body fluids from turning to ice, which could easily happen in the waters of Alaska's Fox Archipelago. The Fox Islands were clustered in the Aleutian Chain, just east of Samalga Pass and the Islands of Four Mountains Group. They were notorious for being difficult to navigate because of recurring adverse weather conditions and an abundance of reefs. As a result, the submarine had to remain a significant distance out to sea, thus the need for what Campbell had called a surgical insemination. All right. The man rode the SDV for nearly a nautical mile, at which point the missile's forward thrust began to decline. The trick was to guide the thing to make a soft landing on the rocky, icy ocean floor, allowing the device to tilt slightly to the right or left. Not only could cause a dangerous collision, but also could alert the enemy's sonar to its location. The rider used both hands to keep the steering mechanism steady as the SDV slowed, drifted lower, and eventually speared over the icy bottom with a smooth thud. When it came to a stop, Solid Snake checked the codec and verified his GPS position, pushed away from the device, and swam towards the dock. Snake might have questioned the wisdom of keeping fit after he supposedly had retired. If he had only gained a few pounds and done nothing but sit and watch television, Campbell might have had second thoughts about his taking the job. The fact that Snake was in superb shape gave Campbell another excuse to think that this man was ready to come back to work, even though Snake had fled to the middle of nowhere trying to escape the life. But he was suddenly thankful that he was in excellent shape, for Snake encountered powerful currents that were preventing him from reaching ground. He struggled hard against them, staying focused, concentrating on the breathing and appropriate muscle groups he needed to get through this, the first of many hurdles he would have to overcome before accomplishing his goals. Eventually, he arrived at the dock several seconds ahead of schedule. He was glad to use them to rest and get his bearings. Shadow Moses Island. I made it. Slowly and quietly, the man with the codename Solid Snake surfaced to his nose and peered at the platform. Floodlights illuminated the area, but the icy wind obscured much of the visibility in all directions. The cargo dock was empty, and so Snake took hold of a support and grasped it tightly. Like a salamander slipping across a stone. Oh, we have alliteration? Alright, this book's not poorly written. It's actually flowing pretty well and using decent verbiage. Anyway, like a salamander slipping across a stone, he climbed the support, slid onto the platform, and darted to the shadows at the side of the water filtration tank. He was out of sight there, so he removed the tank and flippers and leaned them against the wall. That's it. Just a few moments to recharge. Wish I had a cigarette. Snake closed his eyes and began his relaxation exercises. In 60 seconds, he'd be like new. As part of the meditation, Snake sometimes allowed his mind to drift over the events of earlier hours. That helped put the mission in focus. Alright, we're breaking, skipping 2 days earlier. 2 days earlier. He had been dreaming about gathering blueberries and salmon berries with a mind toward feeding the huskies he'd been training for the great Iditarod trail sled dog race when his internal alarm jolted Snake awake. Nah! He listened for a repetition of the sound that had infiltrated his sleep. There. A a footstep crunching something outside the cabin. How come the huskies didn't bark? Snake leaped out of bed, grabbed the 9mm Heckler & Koch P7 from his gun clipboard and snapped a magazine into it. He then carefully peered out of the frost-covered window to see 3 figures darting through the trees behind the cabin. Black Ops, armed with assault rifle. Who the hell are these guys? Snake muttered aloud. He quickly took the bulletproof vest from the table and threw it around himself. He had just finished snapping the last strap when he heard the men in the other room on the other side of the bedroom door. Snake quickly assumed a firing stance at the side of the door, ready for their intrusion. "Combat Operative Solid Snake," called a voice. "We are your friends. Please throw down your weapon. We're under orders from Colonel Roy Campbell. I repeat, throw down your weapon. We're here from Colonel Roy Campbell." Campbell? What the hell? Snake figured the soldiers were using thermal imaging to determine that he was standing in the other room with a pistol in hand. And since Campbell was the only person who knew that Snake lived like a hermit in a remote cabin near Twin Lakes in the Alaskan wilderness, he reluctantly placed the handgun on the table. "We're entering your room. Please raise your hands and do not move." Snake did as he was told. 2 combat soldiers burst into the room, faced Snake, and pointed their rifles at him. The door was unlocked, boys," Snake said. "You didn't have to break it down." "Get dressed, please," one of the men ordered. "The colonel is waiting." Snake sighed heavily. "You better have one hell of a good reason for this." 5 minutes later, Snake and 6 soldiers were trudging through the newly fallen snow to a transport helicopter that landed 100 meters away. Snake figured he hadn't heard the chopper because the wind was strong that morning. A major storm was about to come through. The next hour went by in a blur as the helicopter flew out to sea and made a rendezvous with the SSBN 732 Discovery, Colonel Campbell's mobile headquarters, a submarine currently floating in the Bering Sea. The men escorted Snake through the bowels of the boat until he was placed in what appeared to be the medic's examination room. Snake was told to strip to his underwear, as he needed to undergo some tests. "The hell I will," Snake grumbled. "You don't have a choice, soldier," one of the men replied. "Just do it." When they left him alone, Snake decided to play along. Perhaps they'd send in a pretty nurse to take care of him. It had been a while since he'd seen a female, much less touched one. After he'd been sitting in his shorts for 15 minutes, he kept his beloved bandana on his head. One of the few men Snake called a friend entered the room. Since the officer had been the commander of Foxhound while Snake had been a member, the 2 men had forged a bond that had endured beyond Snake's self-imposed retirement. "Snake, you look well." Snake didn't want to say that the colonel appeared older. After all, the man was in his 60s. Colonel Campbell was dressed as usual in his old Green Beret uniform, even though he was no longer part of that outfit. Josh Guy, thank you for gifting a sub to RC3CR. Sir. "Thanks, Colonel. You look stressed." Campbell shrugged. "Comes with the job." "You interrupted a very pleasant dream I was having about Barry. This had better be good." "Well, sorry if the boys were a little rough, Snake. We need you. This isn't good, but it's big. Colonel." "Snake, we've got a serious situation, and you're the only man who can get us out of it." "You know I'm retired from Foxhound, Colonel. I don't take orders anymore." "Let me tell you what's up, and you'll change your mind. You know Foxhound splintered and many of the next generation special forces banded together and became a renegade group of terrorists, for lack of a better word, hell-bent on taking whatever they want and doing what they deem necessary to accomplish their goals. I heard something about it." Liquor Chicken. A great name. Thanks for gifting a sub to Scary Larry. Quality gift. Thank you. "Well, about 5 hours ago, our nuclear weapons disposal facility on Shadow Moses Island was attacked and captured by those renegades led by members of Foxhound. They're holding hostages and demanding that the government turn over the remains of Big Boss. They say that if their demands are not met within 24 hours, they'll launch a nuke. I'm pretty sure that's like directly from the game. A shadow passed over Snake's face at the mention of the name. Big Boss. Your father, yes. Snake frowned in confusion. Why do they want a corpse? A woman dressed in a white lab coat came into the room. She carried a hypodermic and was smiling. Snake found her attractive and guessed that she was in her late 20s. At last. So that's italicized, meaning it's just like Snake's thoughts. Even though Snake also has thoughts, but at least we have a direct line to Snake's brain, and that's going to be important. Who's she? He asked. This is Doctor. I was combining Dr. and Naomi. This is Dr. Naomi Hunter, the unit's chief medic. She's also an expert in gene therapy. She pointed a needle at him and said, this won't hurt a bit. What's that? I'll tell you in a minute. She proceeded to sterilize his arm and give him the shot before he could protest. Damn it, Colonel, I haven't agreed. Shut up and let me finish, Snake. When she was done, Dr. Hunter stepped back but remained in the room. The Colonel continued. They don't necessarily want Big Boss's corpse. They want cell specimens that contain his genetic information. What for? Gene therapy, so they can better themselves. Dr. Hunter... Oh, no, that was Dr. Hunter's line, thanks. Gene therapy, so they can better themselves. Dr. Hunter spoke in a cultured accent that was not quite British, but certainly Ivy League. They can enhance their next-gen forces with the cells. The military has been working towards identifying the genes that make what they hope to be perfect soldiers. Once the genes are identified, we can splice them into regular troops and then turn them into supermen. Yes. So far, we've discovered about 60 of these soldier genes in Big Boss. Snake shook his head in disbelief. His body was recovered after all. Campbell said, yeah. His cells have remained frozen in cryo chamber. His genomic information is, well, priceless. Not priceless for the military, you mean? Okay, who's talking now? Snake, you can understand why we can't simply hand over his body. It's more valuable as a weapon than any WMD our enemies could threaten us with. Dr. Hunter added, his body was severely burned, but it was possible to restore his DNA profile from just a single strand of hair. Who are these terrorists? Snake asked. Dr. Hunter replied, they're calling themselves the Sons of Big Boss. Campbell continued, there are 600 hardened members of Foxhound, and they're in some pretty rough... There are 6 hardened members of Foxhound, and there's some pretty rough characters. The guy in charge is Foxhound's squad leader. Campbell opened a large envelope marked classified and handed him photographs one by one as he mentioned the names. Snake blinked. Liquid Snake? Campbell nodded grimly. I'm afraid so. A man with the same code name as you. He looks just like me. Pretty shocking, huh? His skin tone is different, his hair is blonde and not black, but otherwise you two do look alike, I must admit. Campbell turned away, not looking Snake in the eye. That's why we really need you for this mission. We believe you're the only person who can stand against him. Snake rubbed his eyes and tried to digest the information. Tell me what you know about him. He fought in the Gulf War as a teenager, the youngest person in the SAS. His job was to track down and destroy mobile Scud missile launching platforms. You were there, Snake. Didn't you infiltrate Western Iraq with a platoon of Green Berets? I was just a kid myself back then. The details are classified, but it seems that originally Liquid Snake penetrated the Middle East as a sleeper for the SIS. You mean he was a spy for the Brits? He never once showed his face in Century House, though. He was taken prisoner in Iraq, and after that, there was no trace of him for several years. After you retired, he was rescued and became a member of Foxhound. I thought by that time they were no longer using code names. I don't know his real name, Campbell said. That information is so highly classified even I can't look at it. Snake rubbed the stubble on his chin. He suddenly felt much older than his 33 years. He indicated the other photographs. Who else? Psycho Mantis, a Russian with allegedly powerful psychic abilities. Sure, they use him for brainwashing and psychological warfare. Then there's Sniper Wolf, a Kurdish woman from Iraq who they say is one of the best shots on the planet, gorgeous and deadly. From Mexico, there's Decoy Octopus, a master of disguise. He speaks a dozen languages and is an expert in transforming his appearance. A talented fellow. There were 2 photos left. Vulcan Raven comes from Alaska. He's half Alaskan Indian, half Inuit Eskimo. The guy's a powerful soldier, and not just because he's a giant. A giant? 210 centimeters tall. Sounds like these guys could open their own circus sideshow. He's also an Indian shaman. Native American. Whatever. Practices some kind of voodoo that allows him to control what he calls the spirits of the wilderness. Snake nodded. I know about those guys in Alaska. They can command animals to do things. Birds, dogs, you name it. Pretty spooky. Finally, there's Revolver Ocelot, a Russian. He's an interrogation specialist and a formidable gunfighter. Strange guy, he dresses in one of those dusters from the cowboy days and wields a 6-shooter. They say the Russians trained him to be quite the proficient torturer. You don't want to be caught alive by him. And Liquid Snake's the head honcho? They don't look so tough. Dr. Hunter spoke up. Don't forget about their army of genome soldier. I'm afraid to ask. They're a combination of brute strength, intelligence, and DNA sampling. Next generation special forces. We believe they're all under the control of this Psycho Mantis, which is how they were able to accomplish the coup and overtake Shadow Moses' facility. They started out as an anti-terrorist special ops unit made up of former members of biochem units, technical escort units, and the nuclear emergency search team, Campbell explained. Their purpose was to respond to threats involving next-generation weapons of mass destruction, including NBC weapons. Until they were added, Dr. Hunter said. Who's they? Mercenaries, Campbell answered. And it gets worse. Most of them were from a merc agency that I think you're familiar with. They were part of Big Boss's private guard, and after he went down, the military just bought out all their contracts. Snake winced. Outer heaven. He had a sudden flash of memory. One of his first Foxhound missions had been to infiltrate the small, self-proclaimed country in South Africa known as Outer Heaven. The powerful military leader Big Boss had turned coat and organized his own nation of mercenaries and renegade soldiers there. Big Boss had been wounded severely after Snake's encounter with him, but the man had survived and went on several years later to mastermind another military state called Zanzibar Land. Snake's second encounter with Big Boss had proved to be the ultimate soldier's final undoing. Or was it? Hits. Glad I took a slurp right then. Campbell continued. After that, they were merged with our own VR unit, Force 21, and retrained. If you ask me, these so-called next-generation special forces should be called simulated soldiers because they have no real battle experience. But don't forget, they've all been strengthened with gene therapy. Dr. Hunter warned. Don't get careless just because they don't have much experience. Snake handed the photographs back to Campbell. I thought using genetically modified soldiers was prohibited by international law. Oh, those are declarations, Dr. Hunter countered, not actual treaties. The interesting thing is that nearly every member of the unit conspired in this attack, Campbell said. But how can an entire unit be subverted to rebellion? They're calling it a revolution, Dr. Hunter said. Like I said, we think Psycho Mantis had something to do with it. Since they all went through the same gene therapy, they probably felt closer than brothers. They see the unit as their only family. They'll be the usual types of forces: Arctic warfare squads, light infantry, NBC warfare squads, and heavily armed troopers. Snake shook his head. NBC warfare soldiers handled nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. Terrific. And then there's the cream of the crop, Campbell added. The Genome Combat Veterans. They'll be dressed in Spec Ops Black Owl Kevlar armored fatigues. They call themselves Space SEALs. Why? Snake asked. Did they sit up, clap their flippers, and bark for treats? No one laughed. The sons of Big Boss. But if they were regular army, they must have been interviewed periodically by army counselors. According to their files, they all got straight A's on their psychological tests. They all seemed fine, upstanding, patriotic soldiers. But they all took part in the uprising? No. Several people didn't show up on the day of the exercises. That's why there was a resupply of troops. There must have been a sign that something was wrong. Dr. Hunter reported. Dr. Hunter said, there was a report a month ago that they were acting strangely. Apparently, they consulted classified information about the soldier genes and performed their own gene therapy experiments. Listen, Campbell said, even the existence of this genome army is a national secret of the highest order. We have been hoping to investigate this thing quietly and deal with it behind closed doors. Snake sighed and said, okay. How many genome soldiers do they have with them? Dozens, Campbell answered. Don't tell me. Snake said, I'm going in alone. Campbell allowed himself a smile. Is there any other way? Snake turned to Dr. Hunter. What in the hell was that shot? An anti-freezing peptide to protect you from the cold. It also contains nanomachines to replenish adrenaline, nutrition, and sugars. And to top it off, there are nootropics, a class of drugs that will help improve your mental functioning. The woman's eyes sparkled. She seemed pleased with herself. Aren't you jumping the gun? I haven't said yes yet. Snake nodded at Campbell. Why are you involved in this, Colonel? I thought you'd be retired too. Snake detected a slight hesitation when Campbell replied, Not too many people know Foxhound as well as I do. Yeah? And what's the real reason? Okay, I'll be frank. A person very dear to me is in one of the... Excuse me. A person very dear to me is one of the hostages. My niece, Meryl. Meryl Silverberg. What's she doing there? She's one of us, an operative, although very young and an inexperienced one. She was assigned to the Shadow Moses facility as an intern, so to speak. When several of the base soldiers were reported missing, she was called in as an emergency replacement. No sooner had she arrived than the revolt occurred. Has she been in contact with you? No. We believe that either she's in hiding, or she's a prisoner along with other civilian employees there. I don't dare think of the, other possibility. Snake narrowed his eyes at Campbell. Why would you allow someone so green to be sent there? It was her choice. She was my brother's girl. Wait, what? Okay. She was my little brother's girl. He and Meryl's mother never married, so Meryl uses her mother's last name. My brother died in the Gulf War when she was 10 years old, and since then I've been watching after her. She's old enough to make her own decisions, although she's not even 20 yet. She's a good soldier, Snake. She's quite adept at hand weapons, and I think you'll find she's quite good at stealth. She knows her ways around computers and electric circuitry as well. If you can find her, she could be a valuable ally once you're inside. Snake didn't particularly want a teenage girl as an ally, no matter how good she was at repairing burned-out wall outlets. Nice. Fucking females. He sighed again and asked, what do I have to do? Campbell almost couldn't contain his joy. Oh! Yeah, no, please. Thanks for the sub. Campbell almost couldn't contain his joy that his most trusted operative had more or less agreed to the mission. You'll have two objectives. First, you need to infiltrate the facility and rescue 2 VIP hostages. Your niece and who else? Oh, not my niece. She's not the objective, but if you can find her, great. Campbell looked down. But if you can't, then I'll find her. Who are the 2 VIPs? DARPA Chief Donald Anderson and the President of Arms Tech, Kenneth Baker. Snake nodded. He knew that DARPA was the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. He just knew that. Arms Tech was the corporation that supplied weapons and arms research for the U.S. military. Heavy-duty hostages. What business did those guys have at a nuclear weapons disposal facility? Well, the truth is that secret exercises were being conducted at the time of the terrorist attack. Huh. Must have been pretty important exercises if those two were involved. What were they doing? Testing some new kind of weapon? Well, I'm not privy to that information. Well, who's in charge of this operation, Colonel? The President of the United States, Snake. Am I stumbled on that? States, Snake. There we go. So the terrorists have a nuke. Shouldn't the President and his cronies issue a COG? Not yet. Jim Houseman has operational control and is fully aware of the situation. After you infiltrate, if you determine they possess nuclear launch capabilities, a COG will be issued. Then it was clear. Houseman was the U.S. Secretary of Defense and a member of the mysterious OSI, an FBI-like organization that conducted criminal investigations among military employees, soldiers, and related civilians. His service record dated back to the Vietnam days. Snake nodded and said, I see. And what's the second objective? It's what I just said. You need to investigate whether the terrorists really have the ability to launch a nuclear strike and stop them if they do. They've already told us they have a warhead, and they gave us the serial number. It was confirmed as authentic. Isn't there some kind of safety device to prevent this type of terrorism? Uh-huh. Every missile and warhead in our arsenal is equipped with a PAL that uses a discrete detonation code. PAL. Permissive Action Link. That's the safety control built into all nuclear weapon systems. But even so, we can't rest easy. The DARPA chief knows the detonation code. Sheesh. That means it'll be on the front page of the National Enquirer tomorrow. But even if they have a nuclear warhead, it must have been removed from its missile. All the missiles on these disposal sites are supposed to be dismantled, right? It's not that easy to get your hands on an ICBM, right? Well, that used to be true, Snake. But since the end of the Cold War, you can get anything you have enough money and the right connections. If you have enough money and the right connections. Do you understand the seriousness of the situation now? Snake stood and stretched. Okay, I guess you have me, Colonel, but you owe me. Big time. Your country won't forget it, Snake. By the way, I'm not a colonel anymore. I'm just a retired old warhorse. Sure, Colonel. I assume this is a weapons and equipment OSP? On-site procurement is the norm, you know that. We'll outfit you with a SOCOM going in, though. A handgun? Damn, Colonel. Hope that doesn't put you over budget. Cut the sarcasm, Snake. Remember, this is a top-secret black op. Don't expect any official support. We'll be in constant contact through your codec, you know, provide you with maps and tactical advice. You know the drill. Tell me more about this facility. Unfortunately, it's primarily a hardened underground base. Even our most advanced intelligence-gathering equipment, we still couldn't tell what's happening on the even with our most advanced intelligence-gathering equipment, we can't tell what's happening on the inside. Peachy. Who else is on the team? Let's go in the control room. I'll introduce you. After you're dressed. The Colonel and Dr. Hunter left the room while Snake donned the special skin-tight suit that had been in the room when he'd arrived. 10 minutes later, he emerged looking more like the Solid Snake combat operative Colonel Campbell had known. The control room was the hotbed of mission activity. Workstations were arranged in a circle, with each member of the team positioned at a designated station responsible for a single aspect of the mission. As commander, Campbell usually remained in the center of the circle, having easy access to each workstation. Hey, Zephyr Tides. Thank you for the sub. Thank you. They're in the ops center, where the magic happened. First, Campbell introduced Snake to a very young Chinese girl who sat at a bank of computers. Snake thought she was definitely a babe, but way too young for him. This is Mei Ling. She's our communications officer, specializes in image and data processing. Besides mine, you'll hear her voice a lot through the codec's in-ear transmitter. Hello, she said with a smile. The codec, he reflected, was an ingenious invention. The codifying satellite communication system incorporated anti-wiring coding, digital real-time burst communication, sonar utilization, and radar. Normal communication was instantly codified, compressed, and transmitted in a burst 1 microsecond in length. However, Snake could receive it in real time, unscrambled and decoded. Special earplugs received the transmission and stimulated the small bones of his ear so that no one but him could hear the sound. And he could contact any member of the team with a speed dial button corresponding to his or her code frequency. Snake thought Mei Ling resembled a manga character come to life, just like one of his Japanese animes. He shook her hand. I didn't expect a designer of world-class military technology to be so cute. She gave him a sideways glance. You're just flattering me? I'm serious. Now I know I won't be bored for the next 18 hours. Can't believe I'm being hit on by the famous Solid Snake. Campbell led Snake away to another computer bank, switched on a monitor, and fiddled with a knob until the image of a woman in her 30s appeared on the screen. She had blonde hair and an East European appearance. This is wow, I'm already fucking it up. This is Nastasha Romanenko, our nuclear weapons expert. She analyzes military hardware and ordnance. She's your tech guru via Codex, Snake. I am so very glad to meet you, Snake, the woman said. Should we roll with that? Why not? Snake pinpointed the dialect. Ukrainian, he said. How did you know? I guessed. Is that where you are, Ukraine? No. I'm in sunny Southern California, Los Angeles. Lucky you. Campbell continued. Dr. Hunter you've already met. She'll be the medical officer on the mission. Did you know her grandfather was Hoover's assistant secretary in the FBI? Is that so? Snake asked. And that gives you the qualifications to be chief medical officer? No, but remember, I've already seen you naked. Do I get a prize for that? Dr. Hunter gave him a wicked smile and retorted, well, if you make it back in one piece, maybe I'll let you see me naked. Well, Colonel, when do I start? Settle down, Snake. You have any questions? Real ones, that is? No, but I wish you'd wrestle Master Miller out of retirement. I miss his cranky pep talks. Snake had hoped that his former Foxhound trainer and mentor, whose real name was McDonald Benedict Miller, would be present. Miller also had retired to the Alaskan wilderness, but Snake had not crossed paths with him in years. Campbell chuckled. Snake, you'll be happy to know that Master Miller has agreed to support you with aid via the codec. You found him? Not exactly, but we're in touch. Don't be surprised if you suddenly hear his voice when you're surrounded by a dozen genome soldiers. A Navy serviceman entered the room and saluted. Colonel, we're approaching the launch site. Thank you, Ensign, Campbell said. He returned the salute and addressed Snake. Get the rest of your gear on. We don't have much time. All right. Now it's today again. Today. And here he was. Less than 12 hours earlier, he had been dreaming of huskies and berries. Now he crouched behind a filtration tank, ready to make his move. Snake heard boots on metal somewhere above him. He carefully peered around the side and saw two soldiers at the other end of the cargo dock. A man wearing a brown trench coat was with them as they approached the freight elevator. I'm going to swat a couple of bothersome flies, the man told the soldiers, speaking with polished elocution. Stay alert! He'll be through here. I know it. So I see someone wearing a duster, Snake whispered. The codec... Oh wait, yeah, that was Revolver. No, that was Liquid at the beginning. Yeah. I see someone wearing a duster. Snake whispered, the codec picking up his words. I think it might be Revolver Ocelot. Can you get a positive ID? Campbell asked, his voice somewhere in the recesses of Snake's ears. The man in the trench coat stepped into the elevator and turned around, facing Snake. Negative. Wait, he turned this way. Colonel, it's not Ocelot. It was the leader himself. Liquid Snake! Alright, that was chapter 2. But since everyone's been so generous, and since chapter 3 is seriously just like 2 pages, we're gonna read chapter 3. It's a bonus chapter! Dun 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 dun. Yeah, some of these accents might get me in trouble. I feel like you can do Mouthful of Marbles Russian and no one gets offended, but Mei Ling's accent is out. Naomi's accent's fine. Like there's certain ones you can make fun of. We'll just feel our way through it. By make fun of, by the way, I don't mean that I'm like trying to make fun of it. I mean that I'm going to be so bad at it that it will be mockery. Anna Mei Ling. Like from one of my mangas. Alright, chapter 3. The man known as Master Miller rolled his fists against the punching bag and produced a pounding, steady rhythm that might have come from an African tribe or a Latino rock band. Yeah, alright. I can hear it. Hey, Holmes. Hey, I watch Blood In, Blood Out. Maybe you should do like give Decoy Octopus a thick Mexican accent. That's fair. That's how the game went, right? Working out in his makeshift gym 3 hours a day not only kept his aging body fit, it gave his reclusive life focus and purpose. After all, separating himself from the hustle and bustle of the real world did have a few drawbacks. Miller would never admit it, but there were times when he felt utterly alone. Most days that was a good thing, and others, not so good. For his money, exercise was the cure-all. Oh, happy weed central time. Yeah, exactly. Like the Cholo accent for GTA. Like I said, I watched Blood In, Blood Out, and that retroactively made that accent okay. Also, I'm dating Steph, and she's half Mexican, so I get like a quarter allowance, and I burned it on that. So it's been used. I burned my card. With a distinguished career serving in the SAS, the Green Berets, the Marine Corps, and Foxhound, Miller was one of those soldiers whom you could take out of the military, but you couldn't take the military out of the man. It was why he was Foxhound's authority on survival training. The fact that he was of third-generation American-Japanese ancestry made no difference to the top brass. Why would it? Third gen? Whatever. The guy was a patriot and an American through and through. He had a reputation of being an ornery SOB and the epitome of the loud, aggressive drill instructor, but each and every one of his recruits would forever utter his name in respect. As Miller continued to pound the bag with rhythms that seemed Latino or African, that was my embellishment. He heard one of his huskies howl. That wasn't unusual. There were wolves in the wilderness where Miller had chosen to build a house, and his huskies often did their duty by scaring the beasts away. But suddenly the howl was cut off sharply, as if something had silenced the dog with finality. Miller grabbed the punching bag to still its rapid pulsation. He listened carefully, but heard only the wind, which had picked up considerably in the last few hours. Never one to ignore a premonitory warning. Good lord. Never one to ignore a premonitory warning. Miller moved fluidly across the gym floor into a clipboard that kept a couple of handguns. His main arsenal was in another part of the house, but he liked to keep some kind of weapon in every room. He unclicked a Glock 9mm from the board, checked that it contained a full magazine, and racked the slide. He then climbed the stairs to the ground floor and sprinted to the central alarm system's control box. It was dead. Miller punched the buttons on the monitors, but each of the 6 screens was blank. There was no way he could see what was outside the house. Someone had to be damned good to find him, he thought. Like Solid Snake, he'd built a home in the far eastern Alaskan wilderness near the Canadian border. There was no easy way to reach the place, and the one and only road leading to the structure was covered in several feet of snow. Besides, his security cameras would have picked up any vehicle traversing the path a mile away. Miller turned and leaped over the couch in his living room. He lay prone on the wooden floor, listening and waiting for the sound of intruders. By hiding behind the piece of furniture, perhaps he would have the element of surprise in his favor. But after 5 minutes, there was nothing. Could he have imagined it? Should he go check on his dogs? Or what if it was a false alarm? Or if it was a false alarm, why would a security system be on the blink? No, something was definitely wrong. Call it Zen, call it sixth sense, call it bullshit. Master Miller knew someone was in the house. Then he noticed the sweet-smelling odor. It reminded him of a dentist's office. Laughing gas? No, this was different. But whatever it was, it couldn't be good. He had to get out of the house, and fast. Unfortunately, he was wearing gym shorts, tennis shoes, and a tank top. Outside, it was minus 30 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, it's playlist, that's why. Miller rose and attempted to jump back over the couch, but immediately felt the effects of the gas. His reaction time was much slower, and his head felt like a helium balloon ready to float to the ceiling without his body. He stumbled and fell onto the couch, but got right back up. Determined to get to his closet, don something warm, and jump through the escape hatch to the ice cave beneath the basement, Miller struggled to run across the room. The smell was much stronger now. Miller thought it was probably sevoflurane. Sevoflurane, one of the most powerful and popular gases used in modern anesthesia. Miller's feet felt like lead bricks as he tried to lift them. With a rapidity that surprised him, a wave of confusion enveloped his brain and the horizon tilted. There was a sensation of falling, but it seemed to take forever. He didn't feel the crash as his face smacked into the floor. With one final effort, Miller crawled a foot or two before darkness overcame him. And that's it for chapter 3. Oh boy, the plot is already twisting. Kind of interesting that they like cue you that Miller's... something's up with Miller, like way before they drop those in the game. Oh yeah, Dawn Apron. Staying hydrated is the key, especially to read books for 24 hours. Doing voices that I am an amateur professional voice actor. But yeah. It's not like I've rehearsed any of this, so I don't know that, and I also don't know how long my voice will hold out. Doing voices I've never done before. So it's fun. It's all fun. All right, let's get back to EDF. And actually, it's going to be time to join the boys soon. I think Bruce might already be on, so maybe we can hook up with him and get some EDF in. Actually, bathroom break for... Hey, well timed. I'm going to pull a little Johnny Sasaki and run to the bathroom before my butt explodes. Not my butt, but I'll be right back. Thanks for watching, folks. See you real soon. All right, we're back. We're back. It's time for more lore from Alaska. It's time to hear about the coolest dude doing tactical espionage things. That's right. Back into the world of Metal Gear Solid. I just saw... You know what? It says an ad's gonna start in 5 minutes. I'll do it now. Just so we don't have it interrupt the read, huh? Oh. Nintendo made an American Express advert, huh? It happens. Oh, you like the graphics? Yeah, actually the filters turned out pretty well on the webcam. Got pretty close to the look. The only thing that doesn't happen is like a rolling distortion effect, which would be an interesting challenge. I think I know how to... Yeah, I can imagine how to do that. It'd be a lot of layering of video layers, though. Infiniteer, thank you very much for the sub. Every sub counts, baby. Yeah, just want to state my appreciation, everybody, for hanging out, choosing this stream to spend your Friday, experiencing quality entertainment like this. Yeah, something like that, Envy. Like a webcam that's shifted over, and then there can just be a filter of it drawing on top. Or a mask. There's an OBS plugin called Stream Effects that I started using because it's really handy. And then they moved updates of it behind a Patreon. So then somebody else took the source code and just compiled it and was like, there. So that's what I use. The problem is soon I'm going to update OBS to the new version that can do multi-track encoding. And so I can get higher quality on Twitch. That might wang everything up. We'll see what happens. Hey, Datinade, thank you for the sub. Yeah, Multi-Man. Apparently they made Metal Gear Solid novels by Raymond Benson. So this came out in 2008. And it's been solidly written, but occasionally cringe, which is pretty good. Pretty good. Chapter 4. Snake eyed his surroundings and double-checked them with the map grid that appeared on the codec, which was strapped around his wrist. The cargo dock was in a hollowed-out cavern that was supported by metal latticework. There was an empty berth at which government supply ships could dock. The approximately 75-foot platform was dotted with large shipping crates, which were scattered across the space all the way to the freight elevator. The rest of the facility probably was built into the ground as well as in the structures above the surface. Liquid had disappeared into the elevator. That was obviously the only access to the surface level. Snake drew the Mark 23 Model 0 SOCOM from its holster and checked the chamber. Locked and loaded in. In Snake's opinion, there was no pistol with better accuracy and resilience than the .45 caliber SOCOM. The laser aiming module was particularly nice. Ironically, in a perfect world, Snake would never have to draw the thing. If everything went as smoothly as possible, not a single shot would be fired. Bad chance. Snake holstered the gun. It was time to make his move. He slipped around the water filtration tank and crawled under the large pipe running along the wall of the cavern. Some kind of vermin droppings lined the perimeter, and Snake frowned. "Colonel, I see animal feces. Are rats here?" he asked. "Negative, Snake," Campbell replied. "We already checked with vermin control. Those are droppings from brown mice. They're harmless. They won't bite. Apparently everyone who works in the facility is used to them. Be alert. We're picking up 4 guards patrolling the cargo dock. Where did Liquid go?" He popped into the elevator. It's amazing. Other than the difference in skin tone, the guy could be my twin. "Snake, he's going to be a formidable enemy. His codename is the same as yours, so you'll be evenly matched, more or less." Yeah, he's got the same name. So that kind of tells it. Agent Tough Juice, thanks for gifting a sub to How Tough Am I? Tough, supporting tough. You like to see it. Evenly matched. Yeah. But it will be the solid versus the liquid. That's Snake thinking. Need to figure out how to denote that it's Snake's noggin at work. Right, Snake said. He continued to study the codec ground plan when he heard the sound of boots nearby. He froze and peered over the pipe to see one of the guards. The man was wearing a snow-white camouflage uniform with a balaclava mask and was armed with a FAMAS assault rifle. The guard moved to the edge of the dock, looked across the water, and sneezed. "Yetch!" Snake crept up behind him, said, "Gesundheit," and executed a silent stranglehold. The guard's neck snapped, and his weight drooped limply into Snake's arms. Snake dragged the body behind the filtration tank and left it there. He heard more footsteps, so he slid under the metal unit, squeezing into the small space between the tank's outside lip and the platform. A soldier must have heard something, for he was walking carefully toward the edge of the dock. Snake rolled out from under the tank on the opposite side, stood, and stealthily inched his way around so that he was behind the guard. Another stranglehold, another dead guard. Snake dragged the corpse behind the tank, searched the man, and found a pack of commercially made American cigarettes. Yuck. Snake preferred a nicotine-based mix of chemicals and plant leaves that he had made especially for him. They were also somewhat smokeless, which was an asset on a mission. He'd been tempted to swallow a pack before leaving the submarine, but hadn't relished the thought of regurgitating them upon arrival. What? Why change that? What, of all the things to change, why change the coolest thing, which is that he barfs up his cigarettes and then smokes them? Man, that's disappointing. Anyway. No. For smokes, he would have to depend on the usual on-site procurement, no matter how awful the brand that he found was. He took the cigarettes and slung the rifle over his arm. It's just like it's an open quote. Snake? Naomi Hunter here. Yes, Doctor. Just reminding you that the genome soldiers have highly developed senses of hearing and vision. They'll come running at the slightest noise. I suspect they're equipped with the same anti-freezing peptide I gave you. That's not going to stop me from putting them on ice. The Colonel interrupted. Snake, 5 minutes ago we launched a diversion to keep them from paying too much attention to what's happening at sea. 2 F-16s took off from Galena and are headed your way. The terrorists' radar should have already picked them up. Would that have been what Liquid Snake meant about swatting down flies? Time to move forward. Snake moved to the edge of the tank and then darted to the nearest crate. He stopped, listened, and moved to the opposite edge and dashed once again to the next closest crate. He continued in that way, sprinting from container to container, gaining yardage towards the end of the platform. When he was at the penultimate crate, he dropped to the ground and peered around the edge at floor level. The elevator had just descended and opened. Third and fourth guards were patrolling from left to right, directly in front of it, on a path some 6 feet away from the last crate. There was no way to sneak up behind the men, so Snake waited until they turned and began walking away from him. He bolted across the floor to the crate closest to the elevator door. There he waited a few seconds for the guards to turn again and walk slowly toward him. They're actually just describing guards walking backward and forward. Hey, Steph! I love it. I love it when books have to describe video game gameplay literally. Snake could hear them muttering something about a storm. He surprised them by stepping out from behind the crate and standing directly in front of them. Merry Christmas, Snake said as he delivered 2 powerhouse punches. Left and then right. Hoo-ha! Oh, so cool. Powerhouse punches. Into the guards' faces. The soldiers plopped to the floor. I forgot to tell you, Christmas is early this year. So cool. Damn. Snake took a hold of one man's arm and dragged his body around the crate. He repeated the process with the other guard. As soon as the limp figures were stuffed tidily into a corner, a siren sounded throughout the complex. Great, Snake said. Either they know I'm here or something else is going on. Colonel, I'm taking the elevator. He stepped into the open cubicle and pressed the button for the surface level. The ride took less than 10 seconds. The doors... there wasn't like a cool lower shot with the title card above him. Man, that's how you know you're in for it. You're in for some real art when that title card hits in Metal Gear Solid. Anyway, the door opened to a massive space, the focal point being an Mi-24D Hind D gunship, residing in the middle of a landing pad. Snake looked up and saw that the roof, a sliding slab of reinforced metal, was retracting so that the helicopter could take off. Blocks of snow fell in from above. Snake could see that it was snowing heavily outside. He moved out of the elevator and slipped along a wall and into the shadows, avoiding the sight lines of 2 guards at the end of the platform. He crouched in the shadows as a female voice he didn't recognize spoke. Snake, weather conditions are bad. A blizzard is hitting your position just about now. Who's that? Oh, sorry, Mei Ling here. I'll be monitoring the weather as well as your communication devices. The roof had retracted completely, and the room lit up like Times Square. Guards moved out of the way as the rotor on the Hind began to rotate, building to speed in seconds. Colonel, there's a Russian gunship here in a state-of-the-art heliport. Someone's crazy enough to fly this thing in this weather. A good pilot could handle a Hind D in a blizzard. The machine was known for its agility and speed. Snake had heard that it was the most difficult combat helicopter to shoot down. Its offensive capabilities were formidable as well, as it possessed a Falanga P anti-tank missile complex and machine guns. The landing lights around the helicopter rotated in place and pointed upward, creating a tunnel of beams to guide the pilot off the helipad. Even though the beast was large for an assault chopper, it gently lifted into the air as if it weighed nothing. It wavered slightly as the pilot fought the strong wind, but whoever was flying the vehicle knew what he was doing. After a moment, the chopper was up, had moved out of the open roof, and was gone. Snake took a moment to light one of the cigarettes. As expected, the commercial stuff was horrible and nearly made him cough. But bad tobacco was better than no tobacco, so... Campbell said, "Snake? Yeah? Liquid fancies himself an expert pilot. He has a big ego and probably would insist on flying it in lieu of anyone else. I suspect he's after our fighters. That means the diversion is working." Mei Ling commented, "I'm surprised our pilots can fly in that storm." Campbell answered, "Their Air Force in Alaska is trained to fly in these conditions. They're some of the best, so to speak." "Hey guys, I don't mean to interrupt this lively discussion, but does someone want to tell me where I'm supposed to go?" Dr. Hunter spoke. "Snake, the DARPA Chief Anderson was injected with the same GPS transmuting nanomachines as you, so you should be able to track his signal with the codec. We're not picking him up yet, but you should be able to once you're inside the complex." Checked the device around his wrist and noted a faint signal. "He's on a different level," Snake said, "and he's a lot farther inland. I've got to get into the bowels of this place." Mei Ling said, "Well, then you'll have to cross the heliport, Snake. We see there's a lot of genome soldier activity in the place, so watch your back." Snake grinned. "There's another large space north of you. Looks like some type of hangar. You'll have to cross that as well to get into the main facility. It's crawling with guards too." "Great. Piece of cake," Snake said. Alright, that's chapter 4. And you know what, Fappy? I have to agree. Smoking is cool. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I think the ritual looks awesome of just like getting a cigarette, lighting it, smoking it, holding it, knocking ashes off. It allows you to display a degree of dexterity that dorky things like vapes just don't do. We need to have a vape that looks cool to smoke. This is what I keep saying. And like, I don't know, even joints like have to get rolled properly in like a cigarette factor. They have to have a cigarette's resistiveness. All right, chapter 5. Yeah, vapes look obnoxious. They look dorky. It's because like you have to hold it like a little piccolo, like a little penny whistle. You're like freaking Peter Piper over here. Anyway, all right, chapter 5. It was a straight shot across the heliport to the other side, except for two things. First, Snake counted 3 roaming guards, again wearing the white camouflage uniforms. Second, the lights on the ceiling had flicked on and produced a searchlight effect, with beams zigzagging haphazardly around the floor. As Snake studied the spotlight's patterns, he noticed an object on the helipad close to where the Hind D had sat. The light passed over it again, and Snake could discern the object was a box. Was it worth the risk to see what it contained? Sure, it'll be fun. He counted the sweeps of the light beams, crisscross pattern, and determined that the cycle was repeated every 30 seconds. To get to the box on the helipad without being hit by searchlight, he had to dart to the edge of the helipad and wait for the crisscross cycle to begin. The drawback was that he would be in full view of the entire helipad. Then, at precisely 10 seconds into the cycle, most of the helipad would be in darkness long enough for him to dash to the box, pick it up, and run left towards the western wall of the structure. But where were the guards? 2 of them had moved out of sight. Snake could still see one standing at the north end of the space next to a truck, some kind of cargo carrier. Okay, Snake wouldn't have to deal with him until the very end. The other 2? Since he didn't spot them, Snake moved to a group of petroleum barrels, crouched, and scanned the room from a different perspective. There. The guard was standing in front of a double doorway on the left side of the room. That was the point to which Snake would have to run after grabbing the box on the helipad. Fine. He would deal with him when the time came. But where was the third guy? Snake waited a few seconds longer, but the man never appeared. Was getting the box still worth the risk? He could be anywhere. Boy, the legend of the box is really heating up, huh? The light beams moved away from the edges of the helipad. It was now or never, or wait for the next cycle, which would take up too much time. Snake bolted across the floor and reached the helipad corner in 2 seconds. He crouched and willed himself to be invisible. Luckily, the dark sneaking suit blended into the shadows surprisingly well. You don't see me, you bastards. He remained perfectly still and counted the seconds as the cycle started over. Voices. 2 men. The third soldier had joined the other man over to the left where Snake needed to go. That stop was going to be a little more challenging than he had originally thought. The searchlights swung across the floor. Snake could still see the guard by the truck smoking a cigarette. At least he wasn't moving. The beams crossed each other and moved away from the center. Snake made his move and sprinted on to the painted H, reached the box, and looked inside. Who can guess what it is? Grenades. 3 chaff grenades. Snake scooped them up, quickly opened up his empty pouch and dropped them in. Time to move. Nanomachines? I mean, they're probably made out of nanomachines, right? I guess they're kind of anti-nanomachine. He ran off the helipad towards the left. I don't know why I keep saying helipad. Helipad towards the left, where the 2 guards stood directly in his path some 20 feet away. They were talking and smoking cigarettes, and even though they were facing his direction so far, they hadn't seen him. Snake picked up his running speed as the men's gazes finally focused on him. They had time only to open their mouths in shock as Snake jumped and collided with them like a bat out of hell. Both soldiers fell backward with Snake's arms locked around their necks just below the chins. With as much force as he could muster, Snake landed on the floor, using the 2 guards' heads as cushions. The cracking sound on the concrete floor meant their conversation was over. Dude, he really just flying clotheslined 2 guards and killed them by smashing their necks into the ground. Snake's brutal, man. Snake twisted his head around and looked north. The guard by the truck was gone. Uh-oh. Snake grabbed the 2 soldiers by their fur-lined hoods and dragged them 8 feet to an alcove on the left side of the structure. The open double doors he'd seen earlier apparently led to a storeroom of some kind. That could be worth a peek. The security camera slowly made an arc as it pivoted back and forth across the entrance. A surveillance camera? Time it right and he'd have it. Snake watched the camera move across his path. The second it was turned away, he ran forward, dived through the double doors into the room, performed a body roll, and landed on his feet, his SOCOM in hand. Oh, roll, ready for action. Snake is so cool. How is Snake so cool? A 4th guard sat draped over a table with his hooded head in his arms. Snake froze. Was the man asleep? As if in answer, the guard snorted on an inhalation, moved his head, mumbled, and settled back into his arms again. Snake stepped quietly to the side of the storeroom to examine the boxes on display. Much of it was food supplies, nothing that might be of use. It appeared that mice had gotten to some of the boxes of grain. There were holes in some of the lower cartons, and grain had spilled all over the floor. He moved to the west wall and hugged it, then slowly stepped around the room. Eventually, he was positioned 4 feet behind the sleeping guard at the table. The man snored loudly and woke himself up. His head rose to the level where Snake wanted it. Sounds like you've got sleep apnea, Snake said. Better get that checked out. As the guard turned his head to see who had spoken, Snake reached out, grabbed the man's skull, threw the hood, and twisted it all the way around. Like he's unscrewing a soda cap or something? Oh my god, Snake. The snap sounded like a slap. Snake gently laid the man back down onto the table and arranged the head and arms as they had been when the guard had been asleep. He then moved to the north side of the storeroom and looked at the shelves. Colonel, I found a pair of thermal goggles. It was Arms Tech's Model A. Reliable and effective heat sensing stealth equipment. Yeah, one-handed. It sounds like it. He just like put his fingers around him and split him. Jeez. I like the idea of just like an absolute terror Snake. Zero IQ murderous with caveman strength. That's his stealth. Snake picked them up and placed them in the pouch. He's got a pouch? I guess that makes sense. Hello, Snake. This is Natasha Romanenko. Oh yeah, the nuclear specialist. How's sunny California? Just fine, except it's night here now. I'm glad you found the thermal goggles. You know, they work by thermal imaging instead of amplifying light like night vision goggles. They'll work just as well in complete darkness. Oh my god, this is making my mouth really dry. I apologize in advance for any European that's offended by what I'm doing. I'm offended too, if that helps. Oh, let's see. Not only that, they can penetrate optical stealth systems. You should be able to spot Claymore mines too. Ah, well, thanks, Nastasia, but I knew all that. Oh, sorry. I guess maybe I'll stay quiet unless you have a question about something, da? Da. They asked me... She keeps talking. They asked me to participate in this operation as a supervisor from the Nuclear Emergency Search Team. I was happy to accept. We must not allow terrorists to get their hands on nuclear weapons of any kind. I hope I can help you stop them. I'll be sure to give you a buzz if I need you, Nastasia, Snake said, and then ended the transmission. He quickly scanned the rest of the shelves and boxes and was tempted to take a box of shells for an M9, but decided against it. He had spent enough time in the helipad already. Snake looked out of the storeroom, kept an eye on the surveillance camera, waited for it to turn away from him, and then bolted out and across the floor to a crate. He flattened his back against it and inched along to the edge. All clear. Snake slipped to the next crate, one that was parallel with the truck. The vehicle was an M548 full-tracked cargo carrier. It would be interesting to take a look under the canopy to see what treasures he might find, but Snake didn't have a fix on the last guard's location. He waited a few precious seconds and listened carefully. He heard bootsteps on the right side of the room. He crouched and saw the soldier walking around a crate, returning to his position by the truck. Snake opened the pouch, removed a chaff grenade, released the safety pin, and tossed the explosive over the top of the crate so that it would land and roll over to the right wall. 5 seconds later, the device exploded, sending microscopic metal shards into the air around it. Chaff grenades were not particularly incendiary, and their damage was slight. The main uses were jamming enemy sensory systems and creating diversions. The guard, surprised by the noise, turned toward the right wall. He called his colleagues by their names and, when he didn't receive a reply, walked cautiously toward the sound of the explosion with his assault rifle readied. As soon as he was around the crate and not in sight, Snake ran to the cargo container and crouched behind its left side. He took the time to lift a corner of the canopy and saw that the truck bed was full of cartons. One was open, and it contained more chaff grenades. Snake reached in, grabbed 2, and thrust them into his pouch. He then turned toward the north wall. Closed steel doors led to the next part of the facility, and Snake doubted that merely waltzing through them would be very safe. There was, however, a ventilation duct on the wall next to the doors. It was covered by a simple mesh grating that he could pry off easily with his fingers. That was his next port of call, he thought. But he didn't want the remaining guard to find his incapacitated buddies. "Over here," he called. The guard acknowledged him, thinking the voice he'd heard was that of one of his colleagues. Man, they really are very smart, aren't they? Snake heard the sound of the man's boots running toward the truck, so he lay prone and rolled under the truck. The man, confused that no one was there, called out the names of his comrades. Snake emerged from the other side of the truck, stood, and casually crept behind him. Oh, he's stalking again. This time, Snake reached around the soldier and grabbed the man's assault rifle with both hands. He pulled the weapon laterally into the guard's neck and applied continuous pressure until he went limp. Snake opened the passenger side of the truck and unceremoniously stuffed the body into the seat. He skirted to the grating and pulled it off with his gloved hands. His big, strong, gloved hands. The duct was big enough for him to worm inside, but it was a tight fit. For illumination, he flicked on a pen light that was built into his shoulder padding. Now it was just a matter of crawling through the channel to its other end. He dragged himself along the claustrophobic metal tunnel, happy to get out of the cold. Even the heliport was enclosed with a sliding roof. Even though the teleport was enclosed with a sliding roof, the temperature in the place was almost as low as it was outdoors. Once he was in the facility proper, the central heat would be on. "How are you doing, Snake?" Campbell asked. Snake grunted in reply. "There's mouse shit in here." He heard the woman giggle. "It's not funny." "Snake," Campbell said, "if that's the worst of your problems, then you've got it easy." Snake continued to crawl until he reached a grating flat on the duct floor. He peered through the mesh into what appeared to be a large area for storing heavy equipment. In fact, he could discern the back end and treads of an armored tank. "An Abrams," he said. "What?" "Colonel, they've got an Abrams tank in there." "That's right, Snake, they have two. Our intelligence reports that you're approaching a hangar for Shadow Moses' armored vehicles, tank parts, and, we think, ammunition." "Good to know, Colonel. But at the moment hold on. Good to know, Colonel, but at the moment I've got it all." "Hold it." Two guards appeared on a catwalk directly beneath him, maybe 5 feet below the bottom of the duct. They caught a bit of their conversation as they walked by. "Oh, the shaft cleaning, they're going to spray for mice," one said. So what do you do with them?" "So what did you do with them?" "Oh, the DARPA guy? He was moved to the cell in the first floor basement, next to the woman." "Oh, I hear she's feisty. What I wouldn't give to..." And they were gone. Jimbo Slice, thank you for gifting 5 subs. Getting us closer to another chapter. I like it. I like it, I love it. Ka-ting! Woman? Woman? In the first floor basement? Meryl Silverberg, perhaps? "Colonel, I know where DARPA Chief Anderson is," Snake said. "And I think I know where your niece is, too." Snake continued the lateral journey through the duct until he came to a juncture going down. He wasn't sure how far it went, but there was no place else to go. He straightened his arms and used isometric pressure to lower himself with his back sliding along the side of the duct. The strain on his shoulder and knees was tremendous, but he had practiced this maneuver many times at Foxhound's obstacle course. Eventually, he came to another ventilation grate. He used his legs and back to wedge himself against the sides of the duct so that he could rest for a moment and look out. The same 2 guards apparently had come down from a set of stairs and were standing 7 feet away from the vent, leaning against a rail. "Put on alert." "Why?" "I heard something about an intruder. He's already done 3 sentries and they say he's using stealth. The security detail's been doubled. Come on." They moved away and continued along the catwalk out of Snake's sight. An intruder? Stealth? Colonel, there's another intruder here. Unless they're talking about me, and things just got a lot more complicated. Did you hide the guards you neutralized? Yes, sir, but that doesn't mean they can't be found. And they may be onto you. But I've done more than 3 sentry. Somehow, Colonel, I don't think so. I think it's somebody else they're talking about. Never mind. I'm going on. He lifted his torso off the back of the duct and continued the spider crawl all the way to the blessed bottom, which finally appeared after several minutes of spine-breaking exertion. The vertical duct ended in a T with passages going off in opposite directions. Which way to go? Heads or tails? To help answer his question, a scratching, scurrying sound grew near. What the? A small herd of brown mice skittered in from his left, ran around his feet, and continued into the duct to his right. When they were gone, Snake muttered, "Where's the fire, boys?" and figured the rodents knew where they were going. He went right. "Snake, we've got you tracked very near the hangar," Mei Ling announced. "There should be a vent opening in a few yards." "I see it." Snake slowed his crawl and focused on staying silent. It was a safe bet that human beings stood just beyond the grating. They might not take kindly to a stranger caught crawling out of their air duct. He approached the grating and looked through the dirty mesh. It emptied onto the ground floor of the hangar. Although the place was big enough to house a small airplane, dominating the floor space were the two Abrams tanks. Work lights on the ceiling illuminated the hangar well enough that a figure, even one dressed in black, might be spotted darting across the floor. There were no guards in sight, but Snake could hear the 2 men talking not far away. He wasn't sure if they could see the vent. Nevertheless, he gently snapped the grill out of its sockets, carefully tilted it, and brought it inside the duct. He then dared to poke his head out of the metal shaft. The 2 guards stood on a second-level catwalk to his right. There was no sign of men on the ground floor, but that didn't mean there weren't any. Ugh. Snake thought it best to play it safe and create a diversion so that he could slip out of the vent unnoticed. He reached into the pouch, removed a single .45 caliber cartridge from his supply of ammunition, and snaked his way out halfway onto the floor. Lying on his back, he flung the bullet into the air, aiming over the nearest Abrams tank. He heard it hit the floor on the other side of the hangar, but the guards didn't notice because of the ambient noise in the space. He hated to use another cartridge, but he had no choice. This time he aimed for the catwalk on the left side of the hangar, directly opposite the guards. Once again on his back, Snake flung the shell hard and hit the left wall. This time the cartridge bounced on the catwalk, clanging as it fell. The 2 guards looked towards the noise, mumbled something, and split up. One proceeded to walk the western side of the hangar via the north end catwalk, and the other man went the southern route, which would take him directly over Snake's head. Snake waited until he heard the boots tromping above him, and then he slipped completely out of the duct. He got to his feet, darted to the center of the floor, and took cover on the right of the nearest Abrams. From there, he could see the freight elevator on the eastern wall. He couldn't risk running for it, because it was in plain view of the guards on the catwalk. Snake cursed to himself and eyed his surroundings for another alternative. 15 feet to the southeast was a steel flight of stairs that led to the second-level catwalk. He reached into his pouch, grasped another shell, and threw it as hard as he could toward the north end of the hangar. The bullet clanged against the second Abrams truck. The 2 guards quickly hurried to investigate, their backs now turned to Snake. He used the opportunity to sprint to the staircase and ascend with the quiet, light touch of the feline species. Like a cat would have been fine, but okay. Up there, the lighting was less intense. Shadows were Snake's friend, so he embraced them one by one as he traveled along the catwalk until he was crouched on the same side as the guards. They were standing and looking over the rail, studying the area around the second Abrams. Snake stooped to all fours once again so that he could crawl silently along the catwalk, a trick Master Miller had taught him. Footsteps on metal latticework made too much noise. Literally becoming a cat was the only way to surprise a target in such a setting. When he was approximately 30 feet away from the men, Snake lay prone on the catwalk, reached into a pocket on the calf of his uniform, removed the SOCOM's sound suppressor. He reached in and removed the SOCOM sound suppressor. He screwed it onto the barrel, using both hands to aim the weapon, and fired a round at one of the guards. The recoil felt good. It had been too long since he had used the weapon on assignment. Shooting snowballs at his wilderness cabin was good for practice, but nothing took the place of a living target. The guard flinched slightly as if he had just been bitten by a nasty bug, and the other man seemed confused about why his partner was wobbling on his feet. Then as the wounded man began to drop, Snake was able to get a clear shot at the second man. The gun jerked in his hands again. Simultaneously, the first man crumbled onto the catwalk as the second guard wrenched violently, staggered against the rail, and then careened over it. His body fell 30 feet onto the concrete floor with a hard kaplump. Snake twisted his head back and forth, eyeing the entire hangar for signs of movement. No one else was inside. He stood, ran back to the staircase, and descended to the floor. He could leave the first corpse on the catwalk since it was out of sight, but he had to get rid of the second guy. Snake crossed the space, picked up the man by his ankles, and dragged him to the side of the room near a set of trash barrels with lids. He removed one lid, heaved the man up and over, and secured the lid on top of him. The storeroom was directly to the right, but the doors were protected by a security keypad. "Colonel, you guys have any security access codes for me?" "Negative, Snake. You'll have to pick those up from somewhere, or someone." Snake didn't feel like trying to guess a code from infinite mathematical possibilities, so he turned his back on the locked treasure trove and ran to the freight elevator. He pressed the button for B1 and said, "Colonel, I'm on my way to the first floor basement. The show's just getting started." Hey, he's killed like 6 dudes already? Okay, and now the bonus chapter, unlocked by your generous sub donations. Let's get in there. Chapter 6. How long this one is? Fair amount, fair length. Snake stood in a weaver stance with the SOCOM in both hands, facing the elevator doors as they opened at the first floor basement to an empty hallway that led forward several feet before making a jog to the left. Snake continued to hold the handgun at a readied position as he stepped out of the lift. The first thing that struck him was a damp, musty smell overlaying the foul odor of an unclean toilet. He thought that if prisoners were being held on this level, they were either mildewed or asphyxiated by now. A shut steel door with a security keypad was on his right. Snake quickly examined the contraption and knew it was useless to try to hotwire it. "Snake," Mei Ling said, "we're picking up 3 warm bodies in your area. And check your codec. We're getting the signal that the DARPA chief is just around the corner from you." "I see it." Sure enough, a blinking blue light appeared on the level ground plan, but automatically appeared on the codec. Snake went farther down the hallway to another steel door. It was shut tight with a security keypad. "I'm at the door to the cell block. No luck, guys, unless you have a code for me." "Not yet. There's got to be another way in. Keep looking." Snake went to the junction and stopped at the edge. He carefully shot a look around the corner and saw that the rest of the corridor was empty. He moved along, the gun still in hand, but there were no doors. It was a dead end. There was, however, a steel stepladder leaning against the back wall. Oh, Niflheim Dragoon. Thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate that. And another ventilation duct just below the ceiling. "I just found my way in. Don't change channels." He quickly set up the ladder, climbed it to the vent, pried off the grating, laid it inside the duct, and crawled inside. The smell was worse in the shaft. Snake crept forward and after 10 feet came to an intersection. The shaft kept going straight, but a leg jogged off to the left. Snake consulted the map on the Kodak. It was difficult to distinguish which path was the one that would lead him to the blinking blue light that was Anderson. He tried the left path first. Snake quietly crept along the metal until he came to another grating in the duct bottom. Looking through it, he had a bird's eye view of a restroom stall. A guard who appeared to be tall and blonde sat on the toilet with a magazine in his lap. The noises the man's body was making were nearly inhuman. The guard mumbled to himself, belched, and muttered something about last night's curry. Curry. Phobic Druid. Thanks for the sub. Amazing. We hear him, Snake. We're analyzing the voice algorithms just in case he's somebody important, Mei Ling announced. Snake checked the indicator light on the Kodak. It was now apparent that DARPA Chief Anderson was not situated along the duct path he had taken. Still, it would be useful to know the layout of the level, in case he ever had to return. Snake moved on past the restroom grating and came to another one 20 feet beyond. Looking down, he could see a messy office containing a desk overflowing with papers and junk food wrappers, a few dirty magazines, and 3 computer monitors. What particularly caught Snake's eye were the boxes of ammunition and grenades that were on the floor against the wall. He wagered that the office belonged to the man on the toilet. He's a low-level guard, Snake, a rookie, Mei Ling said. He's known simply as Johnny. According to the Shadow Moses personnel records, he's the leader computer technician on base. Wow. I think that might be the first meaningless bit of lore that the book has yielded that the game doesn't tell you about. He's a computer tech. Oh, Johnny. Oh, man. Alright, he's the lead computer technician on base. I'd like to get down into his office and poke around. Campbell spoke up. Remember your first priority, Snake. Don't worry, Colonel. I'm on my way out to the other fork. Snake managed to turn around inside the duct. I wish they described that more. And made his way back to the junction. He took the other path, crawled along for 20 feet, and came to another jog to the left. Just beyond that was a grating in the duct floor. Snake moved to it and peered into the cell below. A young woman, dressed in what appeared to be military trousers and a workout bra, was busy doing sit-ups on the floor. She had red hair, was thin and lean, and obviously took her exercising very seriously. Meryl Silverberg in the flesh. Snake wondered if he should let her know he was there, but decided against it. First things first. His orders were to find Anderson before he did anything else. Besides, the girl didn't appear to be in any distress. He'd come back for her. He moved on to another grating 10 feet beyond Meryl's. It too was directly over a cell, and Snake could see an African-American man with his head in his hands, sitting on the decrepit bunk that was fastened to the wall. Snake checked the Kodak and saw that he was right on target. He pried off the grating, pulled it inside the duct, and dropped down into the cell. DARPA Chief Anderson looked up and gasped. Oh. I'm a friend, Snake said quietly. I'm here to get you out. Who are you? The man looked haggard, much older than his 50-something years. He was dressed in what once had been a nice suit. Bloodstains covered patches of his formerly white shirt. My name's not important. You're Anderson, right? The man nodded. He stood, a little uneasy on his feet. Are you all right? Well, I think so. They tortured me. Okay, we're leaving this place. But first I need some information. Sit down for a second. Anderson hesitated and then returned to the bunk. What do you want to know? These terrorists, they're threatening a nuclear strike. Are they capable of it? Terrorists? The guys that took over the base and their little army. They've threatened the White House with a nuclear strike unless some demands are met. Can they do it? Anderson closed his eyes and nodded. I think so. They could launch a nuclear weapon if they really wanted to. Snake crouched in front of the man so they could speak softly. But I thought Shadow Moses Island was just a nuclear waste facility where you dismantle warheads. How could the terrorists get access to a live one? Oh, you're not very informed, are you? Anderson said with a smirk. That's just a cover story. A nuclear disposal outfit? Yeah, Shadow Moses does that too. But for years, this really has been a government-run arms research and development facility. We're building a new type of experimental weapon. A damned important weapon, if I say so myself. They could see that this man still had his pride, if not his dignity. What do you mean? It's a walking battle tank. It has the ability to launch a nuclear strike from anywhere on Earth. It's mobile. Snake felt a chill run up his back. Metal Gear! It can't be! Anderson registered surprise. Oh, you've heard of Metal Gear? It's our most classified black project. How could you know about that? Let's just say I've had Metal Gear business in the past. In fact, Metal Gears had been involved in the Outer Heaven and Zanzibar Land incidents, in which Snake previously had encountered Big Boss. But I thought the project was scrapped. Too dangerous. Why is this so hard? Thank you for gifting a sub. Or sorry, my gosh, thank you for subbing. Thank you for your 4 months of subs. Sorry that I said the dumb wrong thing. We'll enjoy more books to make up for it. Nope. Arms Tech and DARPA joined forces to perfect the thing. We've been working on it for 3 years, and now it's done. The man sighed heavily. But now the revolutionaries have it. Revolutionaries? You mean terrorists? Yeah, terrorists. They have Rex. Rex? Metal Gear Rex. That's the new code name. And it's probably already been armed with a warhead. These guys are pros. They're all experienced in handling and equipping nuclear weapons. A voice at the cell window startled them both. Hey! Snake retreated and hugged the wall next to the door. Johnny, the guard from the toilet, appeared at the window. Are you talking to yourself again? Shut up! Anderson muttered, sorry, and looked at the floor. After a moment, Johnny moved away. Snake waited a moment more, and then slinked around the cell where he was at the edge of the bunk. Jesus Christ. Slinked around the cell until he was at the edge of the bunk. They continued the conversation in whispers. Are there launch safety measures? Snake asked. Detonation codes? Failsafe codes? Yeah, you mean a PAL. There are 2 different passwords. There are 2 different passwords to launch. I know one of the codes. Baker, the president of Armstech, he knows the other password. Anderson bowed his head sheepishly. But they know my password. You talked? I said I was tortured. That one with the gas mask, Psycho Mantis. He can read your mind. You can't resist no matter how hard you try. And believe me, I tried. Probably a matter of time before they get Baker's password too. They may already have it. Where's Baker? And we were together, but they separated us. They moved him somewhere in the 2nd floor basement. I heard the guards say they put him in an area that has a lot of electronic jamming. Any other clues? I think they cemented all the entrances, but that was yesterday. I doubt they've painted them yet. Snake cursed to himself. That's great. They probably have both passwords. But there's another way to stop the launch. Yeah? With card keys. There's 3 of them. Even without the passwords, you can insert the keys and engage the safety lock. Terrific. 3 card keys. Now where are they? Baker has them. Well, then we gotta go get them. Come on, let's get you out of here. Can you walk okay? Oh, I just thought of something. Anderson stood, reached into his pocket, and removed his wallet. He took out what looked like a credit card and handed it to Snake. This is my ID. It's a PAN card. It'll open any security level 1 door. Oh, I know how it works, thanks. Personal area network. Hey, you haven't heard of any other way to disarm the PAL, have you? What do you mean? I didn't even know there was a Metal Gear here. Is the White House going to meet the terrorist demands? Hell if I know. That's their problem. I have my orders, and what about the Pentagon? The Pentagon? What are you talking about? Then you don't know that, Anderson's face suddenly conveyed pain. His eyes bulged in fear as he gasped for air and clutched his chest. What's wrong? What is it? The man screamed loudly, panicked, and lunged for Snake. He grabbed hold of Snake's shoulders and tried to speak, but could only fight for breath. Finally, as if an electric shock had gone through his chest, Anderson jerked violently and then collapsed to the floor. What the hell just happened? Dr. Hunter asked. I don't know. It looked to me like the chief just had a heart attack. Check his pulse. Snake did so. Nada. He's flatlined. I don't understand it. 1 minute he was fine. You heard him. And the next. Forget it, Snake, Campbell said. Better find the Arms Tech president, and fast. Colonel, what did he mean about the Pentagon? Are you keeping information from me? No, Snake. But what? Snake, this op is level red. You know the drill. You need the highest security clearance to be in on the whole story. Hold on a second. And I don't have that? You send me in here to do the dirty work, and I don't know everything I need to survive. Secretary of Defense Hoffman is in operational control. I told you that. I report to him. Come on, we don't have time to sit here and argue about it. Fine. Wait. He heard sounds of a ruckus. Yonto, welcome. Welcome to the stream. You made it. Timer's getting pretty low, though. So we'll see. We'll see. He heard sounds of a ruckus from Meryl's cell next door. She was fighting with someone. It went on for several seconds, and Snake wondered if he should try to hurry up into the air duct and help the woman. But then there was a loud farump and the crash of a body falling against the bunk. Then it was quiet. Snake waited a moment and then heard Meryl's cell door open. He started to climb up onto the bunk so that he could slip up into the duct again, but he heard a key card swipe Anderson's door. Mr. Anderson? A soft voice whispered. The door opened. Johnny stood there wearing a mask and pointing a FAMAS at Snake. No, it wasn't Johnny. A feminine voice accused him. You killed the DARPA chief! What? I heard you through the wall. You killed him! Snake noticed that the guard's hands were shaking. He lowered his SOCOM. You ever pointed a gun at anyone before? Your hands are shaking. Who are you? Meryl Silverberg asked. Snake almost laughed. Can you shoot me, rookie? Careful, I'm no rookie. You've never had to kill anyone, have you? You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie. The woman pulled the mask down so that she could get a better look at him. Liquid? Huh? No, wait, you're not. But you look like... Yeah, I know. Come on, let's get out of here, all right? I'm on your side. Your Uncle Roy sent me. What happened to Johnny? She lowered her rifle. He got fresh. I left him in my cell. How do I look? The guard's uniform was a little big on her. I think you'll pass. I have to get to the second floor basement. Do you know Arms Tech President Baker? Yeah. Then come on. They stepped out of the cell together, and Snake noticed that Johnny was on the floor of the cell, face down, with his ass sticking up in the air. Beautiful. Kowtow. Thanks for the sub. Then he heard the entrance to the cell area slide open. 3 heavily armed genome troopers stormed into the cell block. Meryl immediately whirled to fire the FAMAS, but as Snake had noted, her safety was on. Snake thought fast and drew the SOCOM. Thwack, thwack, thwack. 3 headshots and the trio was down. So, nice work, rookie, Snake said. Shut up! The sound of approaching boots gave them no time to jump for cover. 3 more troopers poured through the door. And this time, Meryl let loose a volley of noisy spray fire, mowing down the men in seconds. She turned to Snake as if to say, See there? Nice shooting, but now everyone in the complex will know we're here. She ran towards the door and said, Come on, I know my way around this place. Meryl, wait! But she was gone. What the hell? Where's she going? Snake followed her out of the cell block and saw her at the end of the hallway, headed for the exit. She turned, aimed the FAMAS at him, and fired another volley of rounds. Snake leaped to the side to avoid being hit, rolled, and cursed aloud. When he sprung back to his feet, she had disappeared. The crazy woman! Why'd she do that? Snake started to run after her, but suddenly felt disoriented. For a second, he wasn't sure where he was, and then a searing pain knifed through his head. He staggered and leaned against the wall. He was confused, but had the presence of mind to wonder why there were no bullet holes from Meryl's blast. The wall was completely smooth. Am I imagining things? And then he closed his eyes and saw DARPA Chief Anderson strapped in a chair, an interrogation lamp shining brightly overhead. What? Snake is seeing this? He's seeing the cutaway scene that happens? I never thought that would all be part of Psycho Mantis's illusion. Huh. And I thought Meryl shooting back was actually her just panicking. I didn't think that was Psycho Mantis making him hallucinate that Meryl was shooting at him. This is the deep lore we came for. All right. Snake recognized 3 figures standing around the poor man. Liquid Snake, Revolver Ocelot, and Psycho Mantis. He's dead, Ocelot said. You fool! Liquid grumbled. I told you to be careful! Psycho Mantis replied. His mental shielding was too strong. We'll never get the detonation codes now. Wait, sir, Mantis said. I have an idea. And the vision dissipated as Snake opened his eyes. He felt the cold steel of the cell block wall against his face. Consciousness returned, and he found that he was standing, hugging the wall. The headache went away as rapidly as it appeared, and he no longer felt disoriented. Dr. Hunter? Yes, Snake? I don't know, something weird just happened. What? I had some kind of hallucination, and a splitting headache for about a minute, but now it's gone. Holy moly, it's Alex. Thank you for the resub. After a pause, Dr. Hunter replied, It could be psychometric interference coming from Psycho Mantis. He's probably nearby. What was in the hallucination? Snake shook his head and flung the cobwebs away. Never mind. I'm on my way to the second floor basement. Let's hope Baker's still alive. And Colonel? Yes, Snake? Your niece is one wacky babe. Oh. One wacky babe. Great line to end the chapter. Great line. Man, okay. This is all right so far. I'm enjoying this. I'm unironically enjoying this. Even the lines that might have been sincere back then are actually working because it's so corny. Man. Yeah, amazing. One wacky babe, am I right? Well, looks like we got about 16 minutes left on the timer. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the next 16 minutes. I do have to I have to step away for just a brief couple of minutes to confer with Steph real quick. But I'll be right back. She also has COD going, but I don't want to use the last 16 minutes setting up COD cam. So I'll be right back. You did it! You did it! The legend. Magic Ferret, thanks for gifting a sub, but Kilixi the Kaiju, the real hero here, with 25 subs, an unprecedented amount of generosity. So let's extend the timer. Let's read another chapter. Beautiful, legendary. And then the next extension, if we get there, is going to be another bonus chapter. This one seems pretty long, though. All right, let's see here. You know, we all can't wait to figure out what happens. Your niece is a wacky babe. Thank you very much. Super, super grateful to be able to do this dumb stuff. Chapter 7. The freight elevator stopped at the second floor basement, and the doors opened to a large, dimly lit room the size of a gymnasium. Concrete pillboxes were positioned across the floor. Snake figured that each one contained supplies and weapons. He hugged the wall and moved to the corner of the room to survey the situation. It was very quiet. Too quiet. And what the hell happened to Meryl? Where did she run off to? Snake, you're in an armory, Mailing said. Our intelligence reports that each one of those concrete blocks is sealed with a security level 1 lock. The Armstech president is most likely beyond the armory in one of the storage rooms on the other side of the pillboxes. Thanks. You know, there's something about this place I don't like. Snake reached into his pouch and retrieved the thermal goggles he had snatched. He put them on and immediately noticed the warm outline of a square on the floor in front of him. A trap door. What those in the business called a murder door. More often than not, a gruesome death in the form of a long drop, steel spikes, or a drowning pool awaited the unwary soul who fell into one. Snake made a running start and then jumped over the trap. He kept the goggles on in case there were more, but he now understood why there weren't any guards about. Why waste manpower when booby traps can do the work? By clearing the first murder door, Snake had access to the closest pillbox. He swiped Anderson's PAN card and the steel door slid open. He stepped inside and was happy to find boxes of SOCOM ammunition along with extra handguns. He grinned as he envisioned himself a cowboy with a gun holster on each side of his waist. A two-fisted automatic gunslinger. Wouldn't it be fun? Unfortunately, he didn't have another holster, so he picked up one of the handguns, loaded it with a full magazine, and put it in his pouch. Then he grabbed as much ammunition as he could carry. There were other types of arms and ammo, but there was only so much a guy could do with 2 hands. Snake left them and exited the pillbox. The thermal goggles picked up another trap in the floor on the way to the next block. Once again, Snake leaped over it, moved swiftly to the next pillbox door, and used the PAN card to get inside. Explosives. Lots and lots of C4 explosive. The stuff came in small containers that were attached to a surface by magnets or sticky tape. Remote sensors activated the things, and they were good for demolishing low to medium level security doors. Wood, some plasters and concrete, depending on the thickness, and cameras. They wouldn't be effective on steel. Nevertheless, Snake picked up 3 of them and stuffed each one in a separate pocket on his trousers. He's got little cargo shorts going. He left the block, studied the floor in front of the third pillbox, and discerned another trap. This one he could skirt. The PAN card opened the security door, and he was inside the block. This one appeared to be stocked with various types of grenades and other explosives. There were some claymore mines, more chaff grenades, flashbangs, and some frags. Fragmentation grenades. Had to make sure you knew what that meant. The claymores were way too bulky. He already had some chaffs, and the flashbangs caused too much attention for Snake's comfort. So he grabbed 3 frags and thrust them into the bulging utility pouch. Find anything useful, Snake? It was Romanenko on the codec. Lots of grenades, some claymores. They're too big to carry. You should maybe try. Claymores can be set up above ground and are designed to produce maximum damage in the wide fan-shaped area. When they go off, they spray 7 1.2mm steel pellets in the 60-degree pattern, much like an oversized shotgun. Traditionally, claymores use a tripwire to set them off, but the ones you have there are new type. They are camouflaged using the new stealth technology and are equipped with sophisticated motion detectors. Snake almost laughed. You really know your stuff, Anastasia. I take pride in my work, if that is what you mean. Never mind. Talk to you later. He exited the pillbox and proceeded to the storage room area, where Baker was most likely being held, but he encountered a concrete wall where the map indicated a door should be. And it was unpainted. Was this what Anderson had told him about? He examined the texture and determined that it was a fairly new structure, and it had been plastered within the last couple of days. Thus, it was still weak. Snake loved coincidences like this. A C4 canister was just the ticket for the job. He just hoped that the noise of the blast wouldn't alert the entire army of genomes and bring them down on his head, but he saw no other alternative. Colonel, I have to blast my way through a wall. He explained the situation, and Campbell concurred with the strategy. Snake scanned the floors and walls to make sure no cameras were pointed his way, and then took one of the C4 containers, exposed the sticky tape, and placed the object on the middle of the freshly painted plaster. He flicked the switch on, moved back behind the pillbox, and held the remote in his hand. The explosive wasn't timed. He could detonate it at any time with the touch of a button. Snake placed his thumb on the trigger, said, "Mazel tov," and pushed it. Oh, Snake. I can't tell if this is playing music. I think it just got way quieter. Alright. The blast was loud, but not as thunderous as he'd expected. Still, it would surely send someone this way. Light shone behind the thick clouds of smoke and dust that clung to the air around the hole in the wall. Snake waited a moment, his SOCOM in hand and ready. Sure enough, the silhouette of a trooper appeared. The soldier played it safe by staying behind the wall and peering out through the smoke. Then another man joined him. Too bad backlighting gives you two away. The sound-suppressed SOCOM jerked twice, and the troopers dropped like bags of refuse. Snake rushed to the edge of the hole, hugged the wall, and waited for any others to investigate why someone would blow a hole in their nice new wall. But none did. He ducked through the opening, waved away the debris in the air, and moved toward the light. The air cleared a few yards into the storage block, and he saw a man sitting in a chair by a pillar. He was positioned directly beneath a bright interrogation lamp. As Snake moved closer, it was apparent that the man was tied to the chair and had a gag in his mouth. He, too, obviously had been tortured recently. The explosion must have frightened the man terribly. His eyes darted around in panic. Snake approached him, held up his hands, and said, "I'm a friend. Are you Arms Tech President Baker?" The man nodded furiously. Snake reached over and took off the gag. The man coughed violently and spit blood onto the floor. Snake started to untie the knots, but Baker cried, "No! Don't touch me!" Then he saw it. A pack of C4 had been strapped to Baker's back, between his shoulder blades. The ropes were attached to the explosives in such a way that loosening them would set it off. Snake examined the canister and realized it would take some time to neutralize the thing. As for Baker, the man looked as if he was at death's door anyway. He was breathing shallowly and could barely hold up his head. "I'm gonna get you out of here," Snake said, somehow. But a booming voice cut through the cold concrete room. "So you're the one the boss keeps talking about." Snake whirled to see a tall figure wearing a duster and several belts of ammunition around his chest. The man had long, yellow-white hair, a beard, and a long mustache. Snake thought Central Casting could use him for the role of General George Custer in a community theater production of The Battle of Little Bighorn. The man grasped a six-shooter in his right hand, and for a crazy moment Snake was reminded of his recent cowboy daydream. Again, a coincidence. "And you must be Revolver Ocelot," Snake said. "That's quite a getup you have on. Didn't they tell you that the Sioux surrendered a long time ago and live in peace now?" "I've been looking forward to meeting you, Solid Snake," Ocelot said. "You have quite a reputation to live up to. You know, it really is amazing how much you resemble Big Boss. I met him once." "Did you?" Snake kept his hand on the SOCOM, ready to blast the guy once he had finished reminiscing. "I first met him in the 60s. We had a duel." Ocelot laughed. "Big Boss beat me, too, fair and square. Your daddy was quite the warrior. Do you measure up to him?" "I don't know. I didn't bring my ruler." Oh my god. Shalashaska. Ocelot's eyes narrowed. "Your mission is over, Snake." The pair stood several paces apart, with the pathetic Mr. Baker in the middle. "Please, help me," the wounded man whimpered. Ocelot slowly held up his gun and pointed the barrel upward, indicating that he wasn't going to shoot. "A Colt Action Army, an original. Finest six-shooter ever made, 6 bullets. More than enough to kill anything that moves. I see you use a SOCOM, the handgun chosen by the U.S. Special Operations Command. Ha! Everyone wants to use the newest and latest technology. Back in the old days, when they really knew how to make things, gunsmiths put their souls into their work. As they say, it ain't the wand, it's the magic in it. I can use this gun like it's part of my body. He twirled the handgun around his finger with the panache of a Western star, and then thrust the barrel into the holster at his side. Oh. Da. Thank you for gifting 5 subs. The glove had been thrown. The two men faced each other, their gun hands ready for a quick draw. Snake slowly inched to his right so that Baker would not be in the line of fire. Ocelot mirrored the steps, but Baker was still dangerously close. Throughout Snake's long career, he had never had to duel another man face to face in such fashion. The scene prompted him to imagine himself on a stage performing the grand climax of an archetypal opera, with the orchestra building to a crescendo as the principals sang their guts out.
Impressive.
Or perhaps he was the protagonist in one of the old Italian Western movies. Yeah, it's that. It's that. If it's Kojima, it's that. That's why they gave him, I feel like that's why they gave him a mustache in 4, just so he'd look like Lee Van Cleef. Snake felt a trickle of sweat beneath his bandana as the synapses between his brain and trigger hand grew ultra-sensitive. In the time it took to not think of drawing the weapon, it would be in Snake's hand. It was something Master Miller had taught him. Let the phantom music in his head become a soundtrack to the situation and then envision each action in the past before actually doing it. He had also learned from Master Miller how to read a person's eyes. The truth always resides in a man's eyes, his mentor had said. Snake usually could determine if a person was lying, he was friend or foe, by the eyes. Unfortunately, Ocelot's eyes had squinted into dark slits, and it was difficult to see the whites, much less the soul that lurked behind the pupils. Revolver Ocelot obviously took the gunslinger persona to an extreme. But we've got a real card redemption. A real trading card redemption. Let's do that real quick. Yeah, we're getting the real deep lore, you guys. This is all the hidden behind the scenes stuff that happened during the gunfight. Isn't that exciting? Oh, we got 2 card redemptions. Frosty's me also. Okay. Let's draw some cards. Draw some cards for our faithful viewers. Here you go. Here's your first card. What the hell? Oh, it's a Maverick card. It's Zane Cooper, professional lawman. A low-key, straight-shooting Coop. Has nothing in common with Maverick. Well, almost nothing. That's a thick card. Surely a high-quality, high-value collectible. Look at that wonderful still. Wow. Just wow. See, you invest in the stream invests in you. Everybody wins. Oh, right. You don't have access to the dock, David. No problem. I forgot about that. Thanks again for asking. Doesn't ever autofill the address.
Congratulations!
Ooh.
First place!
Ooh. Fluffies. Fluffy's Crow Tim. Thank you very much for the bits. Hold on. Actually. Nope, not in Miss Pink. Oh my god, where's Discord? There. All right. If you could send me the email you wanted sent to on Discord, you got it. You got it. Dude.
Impressive.
Wand cake. Thank you for the sub. No, it's okay. I'm glad you got me. All right, one more card. Draw another card here. For Frosty is me, you get this one. Is this? Oh, not a Maverick card. It's a Hunger Games card. Wow. That's surely a very important structure. One that I think might make it the most valuable in the whole lot. Okay. Oh, thank you very much, Fappy. Yeah, Steph has done a lot to make this place very awesome. Super cozy. All right. Congratulations on your card wins. Just remember, I'm not required for that. Or I will be doing no IRS filing on behalf of that. That's all on you. You have to pay the taxes. Capital gains is now your concern and not mine. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Yes. We were in the middle of a very tense duel. Snake and Ocelot are staring each other down. Time for a hardcore hard boy gun drama duel drama. As if a clock were counting down, Snake felt the seconds tick closer to the final moment when the duelists had to draw. Knowing when to act depended on the instinct of a professional. Timing was everything. Ocelot's eyes glinted. Now! Ocelot drew his weapon. Snake saw himself in slow motion as he pulled the SOCOM from its holster and pointed it at the enemy. He simultaneously leaped to the right to perform a body roll. The trick was pulling the SOCOM's trigger once his feet had left the ground and keeping the weapon properly aimed. Ocelot's revolver fired and the bullet soared over Snake's left shoulder. If he hadn't moved, it would have struck him in the face. Snake squeezed the trigger, released 3 rapid shots, hit the floor with his arm, rolled, and landed on his feet in a crouching position. The 3 rounds cut the air inches from Baker's head and ricocheted off a metal girder just behind Ocelot's yellow-white locks of hair. He jerked his head out of the way without moving the rest of his body, a sign that he had little fear. By then, Ocelot had fired 2 more rounds from the revolver. Snake felt the heat from the bullets as they soared too close to his ribcage for comfort. His momentum in moving sideways never faltered, and he took cover behind a girder. He quickly removed the sound suppressor. He'd have better aim without it, and then swung the SOCOM out from behind the beam and fired. But Ocelot also had hidden. The man's voice came from behind a concrete pillbox in the back of Baker's chair. The challenge of a duel for me is reloading a revolver during battle, Ocelot announced. It's such a risky thing to do, taking the time, making yourself vulnerable for those few seconds. Snake heard the cylinder snap shut, and then Ocelot spun it. Hear that, Snake? Such a beautiful sound, the sound of impending death. Snake considered using one of the frag grenades, but quickly nixed that idea because of the stockpiles of explosives around the area. And with the C4 strapped to Baker, Snake couldn't risk it. He would have to depend exclusively on the SOCOM's fire, power, and his ability to dodge Ocelot's barrage to get through the duel. I love the smell of cordite, Ocelot boasted. The smell of fire. It's the smell of the devil. The smell from the bowels of the earth. It's the smell of victory. Snake eyed an area to his right that was full of stacks of crates. A work light on the ceiling illuminated the space much too well, so Snake took a bead on the bulb and fired. It exploded, plunging the area below into shadow. He then ran for the first tower of crates, dodged around from Ocelot's revolver, and took cover. He crouched low and crawled quickly to another stack. From there, he could see Ocelot standing behind Baker, using the Arms Tech President for cover. The gunslinger had no idea where Snake was, but that didn't stop his bravado. "It won't do you any good to hide back there, Snake. There's no way out. I'm sure our noisy little tete-a-tete will summon a squad of genome troopers in minutes." Snake needed to force Ocelot away from Baker. A steam pipe stretched down from the ceiling and along a girder that was directly over the terrorist's head. To get a better shot, Snake lay prone and raised his arm at a 45-degree angle from the floor. He aimed carefully, squeezed the trigger, and blew a hole in the pipe. A burst of hot steam hit Revolver Ocelot on the side of his face. The man yelped and jumped aside. "Damn you!" he shouted. As the gunslinger moved, Snake let loose a salvo of spray fire and shot a couple of holes in the tail of Ocelot's duster. But the man had slipped behind another pillar for cover. Baker sniveled in fear as the hot steam from the burst pipe blasted over his head. Although it wasn't burning him, Snake figured it wasn't very comforting either. The sooner he got the Arms Tech President out of harm's way, the better shape he'd be in to talk. Snake ran to another stack of crates, but had no better shot at Ocelot there than before. The battle was destined to be a game of tag until one of them made a serious mistake and exposed himself for the split second it would take for the other to get a clean shot. Perhaps it would be advantageous for Snake to shoot out some more work lights. The thermal goggles would come in handy and could very well be his only hope of defeating the sharpshooter. Snake scanned the ceiling and shot out the nearest bulb, darkening the space around Baker. But that action gave his position away, prompting Ocelot to let loose a volley of rounds that forced the operative to crouch between the crates. "It's been so long since I've been in such a rewarding battle," Ocelot said. "You're not bad, Snake, I must admit. But it's to be expected, I suppose, since you have the same code as the boss. But I'm just getting warmed up. Very soon I will—" And then there was an ear-splitting cry of pain. At first, Snake thought it was Baker, but he quickly realized that something had happened to Ocelot. He peered around the crates and saw that Ocelot's trigger hand was gone. Blood gushed from the man's severed forearm as he shouted, "Who? What? Nyah!" There was someone else in the room. Snake heard swishing sounds, the kind of noise made by a sword as it cut through air. He saw a dark figure pounce as the gunslinger ducked and leapt for safety. The blade crashed into the pillar, breaking off pieces of concrete. As the intruder moved about, his form seemed to appear and disappear, blending with the surroundings like a chameleon skin. He was fast, too. Stealth. The guy is wearing a stealth suit. Revolver Ocelot turned and fled, holding his injured arm and leaving his lifeless right hand, still holding on to the Colt, lying in a pool of blood on the floor. Snake stepped out from behind the crates to confront the intruder, but the figure had vanished. Snake rushed to Baker, who had passed out from fear. "Baker, wake up!" He slapped the man gently on the cheeks, rousing him. But as soon as the Arms Tech President groaned to life, Snake heard the whooshing sound of the blade. He ducked just in time, where the sword smashed into the pillar behind Baker. Snake performed a lateral roll on the floor to escape another blow from the sword, got to his feet, and faced his new enemy. The man was dressed as a ninja, completely covered in a sleek armored bodysuit made from stealth material, as Snake had suspected. His face was masked by a helmet that had no holes for the eyes. Instead, there was a glowing red sensor in the center, giving him a Cyclops-like appearance. In his right hand, he held a replica of an 8th century sword, but it was equipped with an ultrasonic generator that created a high-frequency blade, allowing the weapon to cut through much denser surfaces than normally would be possible. Hell yeah. But as the ninja moved, Snake gleaned more about the man's costume. It was one of the latest optic camouflage actuator suits, an exoskeleton, usually worn by soldiers who had been wounded severely. The suit utilized a supersonic motor that operated with high-frequency voltage. In essence, the electric currents in the man's muscles were detected and operated by sensors in the suit. The man was a cyborg. A living human being controlled by machinery that kept him alive. A cyborg ninja. "Who are you?" Snake asked. "Are you on the side of the terrorists?" "I am like you," the ninja said in a metallic electronic voice. "I have no name." "Well, take it easy. I have no beef with you." The ninja suddenly trembled and touched his head with his free hand, as if he was experiencing a major headache. "I am tortured." Snake could hear the pain behind the words. Something was terribly wrong with whoever was inside that exoskeleton. Then the cyborg straightened, brandished the high-frequency sword, and said, "Only the blaze of battle can wipe away the agony. Prepare yourself." Alright, got a line break here. We're going to a new scenario. Dr. Naomi Hunter twirled in her swivel chair around away from her computer monitor and stood. "I'll be right back," she said to Campbell. The colonel looked at her and saw that her face was ashen. "Are you all right, Doctor?" "I'm fine. I just need to go to the ladies' room." "You look like you've seen a ghost." She laughed uncertainly and then continued on her way out of the room. She walked down the hall, pushed open the door to the washroom, and went inside. Once alone, she moved to the sink and held onto the sides to keep herself from collapsing. She looked into the mirror and didn't recognize the shock that was apparent in her eyes. Could it be? It was impossible. Or was it? The man in the exoskeleton, as soon as she had heard his voice, filtered through the electronic voice box. The memories of her childhood trauma and subsequent salvation had flooded through her. She wanted to cry out in pain, but wouldn't allow herself to do so. For now she had to keep silent, for her sake, and his. What was he doing on Shadow Moses Island? It broke her heart to see him in that condition, the one he would have to live with for the rest of his life. To have to wear that horrid suit just to stay alive would be a hell beyond her wildest imagination. But that wasn't the worst of it. It was apparent that the man's mind was gone. Did he know who he was? Did he know about his former relationship with Solid Snake? Did he remember her? His appearance on the island certainly threw a wrinkle into the mission. No matter what happened, Dr. Hunter knew she had to remain calm and not give herself away for now. And that ends Chapter 7. Remember, the next extension will be a bonus. So that'll be 2 chapters. If we get there. Unfortunately, the needs of the flesh are calling and I have to eat something. I gotta eat some food. Luckily, I have a lot of leftovers. I think I'll just microwave something real quick. And then we'll be back on the clock. Back on the clock, ready to game, ready to read more lore. If that's where we get. Otherwise, just as a reminder, it is Friday, so we'll have a nice long media tech block after this. One way or the other. Thanks for watching. Happy Friday, everybody. I'll be back. There we go. Actually, I'm going to make a cup of coffee real quick so that I can power up and read this next section. Because we got robot ninjas. We got cyborg ninjas now. So, I'll be right back. Like 5 minutes. See you real soon. Oh, I'm back. Alright. Sorry about the wait there. Had to get me a little bean juice. Ate a couple of handfuls of, like, these weird pizza puff things. I don't know. I'm not sure what they are. Anyway. They were pretty good. We're back. Thank you for your extreme generosity. Gifting subs and extending the stream. Unlocking 2 more chapters. Snake is just squared off with the cyborg ninja. It's that ninja. Chapter 8. The cyborg ninja attacked, with the high-frequency sword spearheading the lunge at Snake as if it had been launched by a powerful bow? Bow, like bow and arrow. Snake barely avoided the blade because the armored soldier moved with the speed of lightning. Despite his evasive action, the sword slashed at Snake's suit just beneath the left arm and sliced the skin along his rib cage. The pain caused his adrenaline to pump over time, which shocked him into overcoming the complacency with which he had been executing the mission thus far. Whoever this guy is, he's not playing around. The ninja continued to swing the sword back and forth in blink of an eye strokes, shearing slivers of whatever material happened to be in the way: wood, metal, and plaster. If the cyborg got a fraction of an inch closer, one of Snake's arms or his head would surely be rolling on the floor. Snake managed to back up and jump onto a 4-foot high platform of stacked forklift pallets. The maneuver surprised and confused the ninja, providing Snake with the moment he needed to fire his weapon. He squeezed the trigger and bombarded the cyborg with several rounds, but the ninja knocked the bullets away with his sword. What? Blue Blitz, thank you for the sub. Also Neon Geigus, thank you for the sub. I don't remember if I said, just seeing your question, Blue Blitz, asking me about EDF World Brothers. I like that game. It wasn't as like engrossing as a full fat EDF, but it was fun and it was cute. I remember thinking it was weird that the voxels didn't like shatter. They broke up into chunks. I thought that was the whole point of like having a voxel style, is that aliens and buildings would just kind of like break off into bits. Realistic physics bits. Maybe 2. Okay, let's see here. Where were we at? Oh, knocked the bullets away with his sword. Snake had never seen anything like it. The creature obviously could move with a speed far greater than that of any mortal man. He switched to spray fire and emptied the magazine, but the ninja continued to bat away bullets. Even though many of them got through the sword's defenses, the round simply bounced off the armored suit as if they were marbles. "Your weapons do you no honor," the ninja said. "Too slow." Snake foresaw the sword swinging at him, jumped, and grabbed a hold of a low-hanging girder. He swung his legs up and hugged it as the blade swiped to the space where his body had been a split second earlier. The ninja attempted to strike him from the floor. He wasn't tall enough, so he jumped 6 feet into the air from a standing position. The blade swished towards Snake as he released the girder and fell onto the stack of wooden pallets. The top few split into timbers as his body crashed through them. He tried to wiggle out, but he was stuck within the broken slats. The ninja raised the sword to strike. Snake furiously kicked out the sides of the pallets to free himself, sending missiles of wood in the cyborg's direction. The ninja's blade easily shattered them into 100 pieces. The distraction gave Snake the opportunity to pull back his knees and jackknife out of the pallets, perform a flip mid-air, and land on his feet. So Snake kicked wood so hard it exploded, and the shards flew towards the ninja at like ballistic speed. Man, ninja fights are cool. The cyborg staggered back and held his head again. "The pain!" he groaned. The man's entire body trembled for a second, and then he shook himself like a dog that had just emerged from a pool of water. The red sensor on his face focused on Snake, and then he brandished the sword. "The pain makes me feel so alive!" And then he attacked again. Snake didn't waste time fighting because it was futile. He needed a completely different strategy, and to formulate one, he had to find some cover for a couple of minutes. He holstered his weapon and performed a somersault out of the way of the sword, which crashed down onto the floor where he'd been standing. Master Miller had taught him to use walls, stationary objects, and furniture in a room as springboards, push-off points to get quickly from one place to another. Thus, Snake became something of a human pinball as he bounced away from the cyborg, leaping and kicking off of solid surfaces with the agility of a circus artist. 3 seconds later, he was behind one of the concrete pillboxes, his back against the wall, taking deep breaths. Reflexively, he reloaded the SOCOM and said for the benefit of the codec, any suggestions on how to beat this guy would be greatly appreciated. Wait, he shit himself? What? I guess maybe Johnny shit himself. Sorry. There's a chunk of pizza puff stuck in my tooth. Got it. This music is a very action-based floss. Yeah, someone else shit in my pants. That's not mine. I would know mine, okay? Listen, I've been shitting my whole life. I think I know if I shit my own shit. Alright? I think I would know. Alright. Stand by, Snake. We're working on it, the Colonel answered. Stand by? Was he kidding? Snake closed his eyes and concentrated on the sounds around him. The ninja moved silently and swiftly. Would he be able to hear the creature if he came close? What Snake could hear was his own heart beating furiously. It had been too long since he'd seen action such as this. Perhaps he hadn't been in the best shape. Stop it, he willed himself. Of course I'm in shape. It's the ninja who's got the superpowers. He remembered more of Master Miller's admonitions. Put an enemy's strengths into perspective. Don't compare him to yourself. Measuring the abilities of one man against another is pointless. What mattered was confidence, positive thinking, and envisioning victory over defeat before battle had begun. Easier said than done. Becoming impatient with the dead silence in the room, Snake finally moved to the edge of the pillbox and stole a look back at the storage room. All he could see was Baker, still sitting under the lamp, and the leaking steam pipe. The ninja was gone. Was the creature using his suit's stealth qualities as camouflage? Was the cyborg right in front of his eyes, but cleverly blended into the background? Snake slipped the thermal goggles back on. The heat from Baker's body was clearly visible, but it was weak. The man was dying. He had to get over there and talk to the guy before it was too late. There was no other heat source. Snake cautiously slipped out from behind the pillbox and then moved slowly back into the storeroom. He looked up and down the rows between equipment and supplies, but the ninja was nowhere to be seen. The creature must have fled. He didn't sound like he was all there mentally either. Snake set out for Baker but halted in mid-stride. Something wasn't right. There was definitely another entity nearby. Snake's senses were so finely tuned that he could feel when there was danger around the corner. It was an asset of the genetic coding that went into his makeup, but Snake also had become more sensitive as a result of the post-traumatic stress disorder he had suffered from over the last couple of years. His previous mission for Foxhound had shaken him to the core, resulting in his early retirement and retreat into the Alaskan wilderness. It had taken months to rid himself of the hallucinations, paranoia, and mental confusion that accompanied PTSD, but his rehabilitation inexplicably left him with ultra-awareness. He heard better, saw more clearly, reacted faster, and although he didn't believe in a sixth sense, Master Miller had remarked that Snake had developed one. That's awesome. There are so many military films where it's like they really do pitch PTSD like a superpower. They're usually really guttural, crappy low budget movies, but it's always a veteran comes back, his neighborhood's gone to shit, somebody steals his daughter, and then he like a switch gets flipped, right? And he turns into Rambo. But there's always a scene. Well, I've seen a lot of movies where there's a scene where the military guy's getting beat down at the end, and then he mentally snaps. It's like PTSD is the source of his Hulk-like power that allows him to persist, to win. I wonder how specifically that's written for people that have PTSD and they want to imagine that it is their superpower. Like a good walking tall. Yeah, the walking talls. Death Wish, I guess, is the original. All right. It's great. A+, love it. I am all about veteran rampage films. Okay. He totally has a sixth sense. If this was this, it was this sixth sense that saved his life. As he stood between the stacks of crates, a mere 15 feet away from Baker, Snake became conscious of a presence hovering over him. He quickly glanced at the ceiling and reflexively leaped to the side before the exoskeleton fell on top of him. The cyborg ninja had climbed onto the girders and waited for the moment when he could leap onto his prey. But instead of colliding into Snake, the ninja crashed face down onto the floor. The creature was slightly stunned. Snake used the opening to jump into position and kick the ninja in the head. The cyborg's skull jerked backwards as he emitted an unearthly cry of pain. Snake spun his body in preparation for another roundhouse kick. But this time the cyborg caught his ankle. Using unimaginable strength, the ninja lifted Snake with one arm and tossed him into a pile of crates as if the operative had the weight of a house cat. Then the cyborg got to his feet, drew the sword from his scabbard, and pointed it at Snake. He moved closer so that the sharp point touched Snake's Adam's apple. Are you not my enemy? Snake was dazed by the throw. He lay helplessly on his back, looked up at the imposing exoskeleton, and waited for the inevitable skewering. But then he realized the creature had asked him a question. I'm not your enemy, he answered. He took off the thermal goggles so that the creature could see the sincerity in his eyes. The cyborg hesitated. The red sensor on his face fluctuated in intensity. He then pulled back the sword and straightened his body. Once again, the ninja rubbed his head. Pain! I do not know! The ninja turned from Snake and started to walk away as if he had just woken up from a dream and didn't know where he was, yeah. Wait, Snake said. Let me help you. But the ninja broke into a run and was gone before Snake could get to his feet. Damn, he's fast. Snake didn't chase after the tormented creature. He stood and brushed the splinters from his suit as he considered that there was something familiar about the ninja, but he didn't know what it was. There was no time to think about it either. Perhaps he'd run into the cyborg again, but for now, Baker was his main priority. The Armstech president appeared to be unconscious, but Snake could see that he was still breathing. Baker. He approached and gently wrestled the man. Wake up, can you hear me? Baker groaned and lifted his head. Who are you? He asked in a whisper. Snake took the canteen that was fastened to his utility belt, opened it, and gave the man a few sips of water. I'm not one of them, he said. Thank you, Baker said. The liquid seemed to give him a little strength. You're from the Pentagon, aren't you? Jim sent you. Snake replaced the canteen. Anderson said he gave them his detonation code. What about yours? Baker winced and looked away. I talked. Damn. Snake wanted to slug the guy. The other terrorists have both codes. Do you realize what this means? They can launch a nuke anytime they want. It was the physical torture. But I resisted Psycho Mantis's mind probe. The surgical implants in my brain. Everyone who knows the codes has them. Even the DARPA chief? Yes. But Anderson said Psycho Mantis got the code from him. How can that be? Baker shook his head in confusion. I don't know. Please, I'm dying. Snake crouched in front of him. Listen to me. Okay, the terrorists have both codes, but what about the card keys? The ones that override the detonation code? Do you have them? The man shook his head again. Not anymore. I gave them to the girl. There was a soldier, a young girl. She arrived at the facility recently. I trusted her. I gave them to her. They threw her in prison because she didn't join the revolt. I hope she's all right. Meryl. He was thinking that up in the noodle, and now he's talking. I hope she is too. He's a bit green, but seemed to me to be pretty tough. God, I take that again. She's a bit green, but seemed to me to be pretty tough. Snake wondered if the card keys might have been confiscated when she was put into the cell. He had to find her again. I see you have a codec. Baker smiled slightly. She has one now. She stole one from a guard. Her codec frequency is 2.63. Or it was. I hope they haven't caught her. They're not going to do some kind of joke about the frequency being on the back of the case? That's no fun. I think she's running around loose, Mr. Baker. I'll find her. What can you tell me about these terrorists? I know Liquid Snake is the leader. Who are his closest lieutenants? Revolver Ocelot? Baker coughed. Ocelot. He tortured me. Bad. He is one of the top men. But the right-hand man is Decoy Octopus. But I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. What do you mean? Octopus was near Liquid all the time. But he disappeared. He must have been sent away on a mission or something. Watch out for the woman. The one with the wolves. Sniper Wolf. Baker nodded. He coughed up blood. It dribbled down his chin. Tell me, if the keys don't work, is there another way to prevent nuclear launch? Oh wait, that was Snake saying that. Alright, well, imagine Snake said that. Baker nodded and coughed again. Otacon! Find Otacon! Who? That's his name. Code name. Hal Emmerich. Dr. Hal Emmerich. He's the team leader, chief engineer of the Metal Gear Rex project. If anyone can figure out how to stop Metal Gear from launching, it's him. Where is he? How do I find him? He's a prisoner too. Where? I think in the nuclear warhead storage building. Snake knew from studying the maps that this was a part of the main complex, where the terrorists most likely were holding down the fort. You know who that was just now? That ninja thing? Ninja? Oh. The man coughed. That was Foxhound's dark little secret. Huh? An experimental genome soldier. Ask Dr. Hunter. A coughing fit overtook Baker. Blood spewed from his mouth and spattered the front of his clothing. It was obvious to Snake that Baker wasn't going to hold up for much more interrogation. Okay, take it easy, Mr. Baker. Now let's see what we can do to get this C4 off you. Snake examined the mechanism, but Baker shook his head. Don't forget it. I'm dying. Don't waste your time. Snake knew the man was right. I'm sorry, Baker. It's all right. Go. Baker, why the hell did you guys revive the Metal Gear project? There is so much nuclear material in the world unaccounted for. Any small country or terrorist group could easily get a hold of a nuke. So we, the US, to maintain our policy of deterrence, we needed a weapon of overwhelming power. But it's crazy. My company, Arms Tech, We pushed for Metal Gear to be developed as a black project. Black project? Secret projects paid for by the Pentagon's black budget. That way the bleeding heart liberals can stop them. Anyway, the Metal Gear was going to be formally adopted after the results of this exercise. Frankly, I don't give a crap about your company. Right. So here, reach into my trouser pocket. Snake did, and found a computer disk. This is what you came for, the optical disc. I don't know what. It's what you need to give. Give to Jim. It is the only remaining copy of the data. Snake stuck the disc into a pocket on his utility belt. What data? All the data collected from this exercise. Make sure Jim gets it. Jim Houseman? I take my orders from Colonel Campbell. I don't know anything about... Listen! Baker coughed and his breath became shorter. You must stop them. If it goes public, Arms Tech is finished. Why? Metal Gear uses existing technology, doesn't it? Sure, Metal Gear does, but... He coughed. He coughed more as blood oozed out of his mouth. Then his body jerked and trembled as his eyes rolled up into his head. He groaned in pain. What? No, it can't be! What's happening, Mr. Baker? Those Pentagon bastards! They went and did it! What are you talking about? They're using you to... Baker's entire body went into spasm for a moment, and then he stiffened. With one final exhalation, he sagged in the chair. Snake reached out and felt for a pulse, but there was none. Colonel, are you listening? Baker's dead. Dr. Hunter spoke. The torture must have been too much for him. Is it a heart attack? I think so, Snake said. Just like Anderson. Well, we won't know for sure until there's a post-mortem. What the hell was that ninja thing? Do you know? I'm afraid I don't have enough information, Snake. A member of Foxhound? No. Are you sure? Oh wait, this is Campbell talking. We have no one like that in our unit. Colonel, are you sure? I'm here. Well, wait, no. Wait. I don't know who's talking. It's just like a series of back and forth quotes. I think it's just between Snake and Naomi. Until he calls out for the Colonel. Okay, what was Baker talking about? What does the Pentagon have to do with all this? Snake, now is not the time. Damn it, Colonel! It's my life on the line here. What are you not telling me? I can't reveal classified information to you, Snake. I'm sorry. Oh, well, that's just hunky-dory. What about Decoy Octopus? Baker said he's gone. Do you have any record of transports leaving the island for the past 24 hours? No one has left the island, Snake. Octopus must still be there. Remember, he has the ability to become anyone. He is the Master of Disguise. Thanks, Colonel. Are there any more words of wisdom that you have to offer? Campbell hesitated and then said, Snake, I want you to find my niece and work together. With as much sarcasm as he could muster, Snake asked, And I can trust her? Snake, you can probably trust her more than you can trust me. That's what I figured. Look, Colonel, I don't know what's going on, and I can see you're not about to tell me, but something smells about this mission, and it's not the mouse droppings I keep crawling over. The Colonel's silence spoke volumes. Dun dun. That's the end of Chapter 8, but we have extended this, or this was a bonus extension, so Chapter 9 begins. Due to a very generous sub bomb. All right. Chapter 9. Snake studied the aerial map of the facility on the Kodak. The nuclear warhead storage building was a separate structure. He would have to return to the first level and the tank hangar to access an exit. It appeared that a narrow lengthwise canyon connected the two buildings. There was no telling what kinds of defenses the terrorists had set up outside, but one thing was certain: it would be cold. Snake was thankful for Dr. Hunter's injection and wondered how long its effects would last. Time for a cigarette. As much as he hated the kind he'd pinched from the soldier, he needed the nicotine fix. Snake lit up, winced at the taste, and then punched in the codec to reach Meryl Silverberg. After a moment, she answered, and her masked face appeared on the codec's small view screen. All right. Confirmed, Snake can see a picture of who he's talking to through the codec. We have confirmed it for real. That kind of came up in one of the games, like they talk like they can see each other. Or really, it's that Snake can see the other side and that's it. Who is this? You're the Colonel's niece, Meryl, right? I asked you a question. I'm called Solid Snake. You don't say. A legendary Solid Snake? That's right. I'm working for your uncle. I figured he'd send someone. Didn't think it would be you. I thought you'd be retired. I am retired. I'm just doing this for fun. That was you before? In the cell block? Uh-huh. Well, sorry about running out on you. I didn't know who the heck you were. I didn't want to take the chance that you were one of the bad guys. You look like... I know. Where are you now? I'm in the belly of the security system. I'm this close to figuring out how to hotwire the hangar's cargo door. It's got a level 5 security lock on it. No one has level 5 clearance except for the terrorists. I'm assuming you want to get to the other buildings? That's affirmative. Then you need my help. You'll never get that door open by yourself. I don't know. I'm pretty good with doors. I do windows too. Mister, by the time you found the security system, they'll have already launched a nuke. This gave Snake pause. So tell me, Meryl, what is this place really? It's not just a nuclear disposal facility. Of course not. Didn't my uncle tell you anything? Not enough, apparently. This place is owned and operated by an arms tech dummy corporation. It's a civilian base for the development of metal gear. You know what that is? I'm, familiar with it. This was supposed to be a sort of final test, you know, before a formal adoption of the program by the Pentagon. I don't like it. No government has any business fooling around with these metal gear contraptions. They might blow someone up. Meryl laughed. You're pretty funny for an ex-Foxhound operative. Excuse me. Starting to stack up. I accidentally forced it a few too many times. I do Snake voice. Or even a shitty knockoff of Snake voice. So where are all the hostages? The facility's employees? I don't know. They were rounded up and put somewhere. Some of them were interrogated, brainwashed. I don't know. Baker told me he gave you the 3 key cards that stopped the Rex from launching. You have them? Huh. I have a key. He didn't give me 3. Really? Then what was he talking about? I have no idea, but I still have the one he gave me. Oh, then hang on to it. How do you manage to keep it hidden from guards? Huh. Women have more hiding places than men. Snake almost smiled. Do you know Dr. Emmerich? Yeah, he designed the new Rex. Nice guy. Where is he? Probably in the research lab of the... Oh, hold on. Here. Probably in the research lab of the nuclear warhead storage building. That's across the canyon outside to the north. Did you bring your snow boots and winter coat? Yes, Mom. I'm gonna find him. If we can't override the detonation code in time, maybe he knows how to destroy the damn thing. You can't take Rex on by yourself, mister. I've done it before. I'll check with you later. Get that door open for me and I'll buy you an ice cream when we get back to civilization. Oh boy, can't wait. Give me a few minutes, wait for me in the hangar and I'll go with you. Nope. No offense, Meryl, but you don't have enough real combat experience. I want you to find a good hiding place and concentrate on not getting caught again until I've sewn this place up. Then we can meet up and I'll get you out of here. Look, I'm sorry about before, you know, with my gun. I don't know what happened, I just couldn't pull the trigger right away. I've never had any problems during training, but when I thought of bullets tearing into those soldiers' bodies, well, I guess I had just hesitated. Shooting at training targets and shooting at living people are very different. She sighed. Ever since I was a little girl, I dreamed about being a soldier. All my life I trained for the day I'd see some real action, and now? So you want to quit? I can't quit. Look, Meryl, everyone feels sick the first time they kill someone. Unfortunately, killing someone is one of those things that gets easier the more you do it. In a war, all of humankind's worst emotions and worst traits come out. It's easy to forget what a sin is in the middle of a battlefield. You're just a little jumpy from the combat high. The adrenaline in your bloodstream is starting to thin out. Just take it easy. Yeah, I learned all about combat high at the academy. We'll talk about it later. For now, just think about keeping yourself alive. Staying the hell out of my way. You're a real bastard. My uncle was right, she said. Look, I know my way around this place. I could be useful. Sorry, I work alone. I wouldn't want anything to happen to you on your uncle's watch. Snake could feel her pouting. She was obviously still young and inexperienced in field operations. She had no idea how dangerous it really was. She pulled off her mask. All right, Snake, she said. I'll be a good little girl, and maybe I'll open the hangar cargo door for you. He was struck by her model's good looks. He'd had no idea. One of those moments. What? She asked, aware that he hadn't said anything. Nothing, it's just your eyes. My eyes? They're not soldiers' eyes. Oh, right. Rookie's eyes, huh? No, they're beautiful, compassionate eyes. Huh. Just what I'd expect from the legendary Solid Snake. Trying to sweep me off my feet? Snake gave her a cynical laugh. Don't worry, you'd land right back on them as soon as you got to know me. The reality is no match for the legend, I'm afraid. Let's link up later. Stay put. Snake clicked off and moved toward the freight elevator. He took it to level 1, stood to the side of the car so that he wouldn't be seen when the doors opened, and waited. He heard nothing nearby, so he cautiously slipped out of the lift and hugged the wall. The tank hangar was as he'd left it, except for one significant change. One of the Abrams tanks was gone. Alright, line break. The giant stood on a glacier that jutted out over the side of the canyon and eyed the building that housed the tank hangar. So far, the door had remained closed. The canyon was the size of an American football field, approximately 100 yards between the hangar building and the nuclear warhead storage structure. The snow had continued to fall at a steady pace, covering the canyon floor with a minimum of 2 feet, but weather reports predicted severe blizzard conditions within hours. At the moment, though, the atmospheric state was nothing out of the ordinary for Shadow Moses Island. For a small island in the Alluation? I don't remember how they say it. In the Alluation chain that stretched from Alaska to Russia, adverse climate was par the course. The giant wondered why the US government would build a facility in such a remote and harsh location, but his was not to question the antics of American politicians and military commanders. Even though he was American by birth, his allegiance was to Russians, and for whom he had worked for years. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, the giant had worked for hire. The new Foxhound was just as good an employer as anyone. At least he would see some action soon. Man, this song is so good. I listen to this so much. The best is yet to come. A large black bird circled the glacier and eventually landed on the giant's shoulder. Vulcan Raven reached into a pocket and pulled out a handful of dried fruit pieces. He held it to the raven and allowed it to feed. The bird dug in, even though it preferred fresh carrion. Patience, my friend, the Alaskan said. The time is nearer. Very soon we will see the enemy emerge from those doors. Then we will join our comrades in the tank and commence battle. The ancestors will be proud of our victory today. Vulcan Raven looked down onto the canyon floor where the M1 Abrams sat. The two gunners were already in position inside the vehicle. They were ordinary genome troopers who had no wish to bear the brunt of the cold weather. The climate didn't bother Vulcan Raven. He could survive for days in sub-zero temperatures. He wasn't half Alaskan Indian and half Inuit Eskimo for nothing. His immense size also contributed to the way his body generated warmth. He was a walking, breathing energy source.
I suppose we should climb down the glacier now. What do you think, my friend?
He asked the bird. The raven squawked, "Ah!" finished the sample of dried fruit, and lifted off to hover over its master's head. The giant picked up his Gatling gun, a 20mm M61A1 Vulcan that he could wield by hand as if it were a pop gun, and slung it over his shoulder. Before descending the cliff, he touched the birthmark on his forehead. The elder shaman had taught him from an early age that he'd been born with the mark of destiny. Eskimos and Indians worshipped ravens, and Vulcan Raven happened to enter the world with the shape of the bird engraved on his skin. Oh, I didn't know it was a birthmark. All right. A new lorable? New little lore bit? Much of the giant's mythical power derived from the birthmark. When he became excited, such as in the heat of battle, the mark disappeared and his senses were heightened to inhuman levels. But Vulcan Raven's size and birthmark were not the only things about him that intimidated enemies. His imposing body was covered from head to toe in tattoos depicting petroglyphs copied from prehistoric Indian ruins. The markings resembled circuit wiring, which Vulcan found ironic. Even 2,000 years ago, the ancient shamans had foreseen the coming of the age of electronics.
Let's go, friend.
The raven floated alongside him as the giant began his descent. All right, line break. Snake ventured farther into the hangar and immediately became aware of a genome guard on the catwalk to his left. He froze, hoping that the man hadn't seen him. In the shadowy lighting, Snake's suit could blend into his surroundings, but movement would give him away. Snake wished his suit really could blend into his surroundings. Oh, maybe someday. The guard walked along the catwalk, stopped at the rail, and lit a cigarette. This bozo hasn't seen me. Good. Snake waited until the guard turned to continue his patrol in the other direction. As soon as the man's back was to him, Snake moved against the wall, out of the guard's sight lines. He then slipped towards the metal staircase. His plan was to get rid of the guard, check to make sure there weren't any others in the hangar, and then be ready for the slatted cargo door to roll up, if Meryl was as good as she claimed she was. The operative crept silently up the stairs and reached the catwalk. The guard was walking slowly toward him, so Snake stayed on the top steps below the level of the mesh walk. He listened carefully for the sound of the boots approaching. 6 feet. 4 feet. 2 feet. Snake reached up and grabbed the man by the ankles and pulled. The soldier fell flat on his back, generating an unwanted loud clang on the metal walk. Snake quickly leaped up onto the platform and stomped on the guard's face. Jesus Christ, Snake. Hey, Kim Sickle, good to see you. A second kick to the side of the head, and the man was in dreamland. Yeah, with I guess a shattered skull? I don't know. He did snap a man's neck just by gripping it with one hand and twisting it. He whirled around and surveyed the entire hangar from the advantageous height. There was no other movement. He could see, however, the tracks left by the missing Abrams tank. It had been driven from its position on the floor to the roll-up cargo door. It assuredly was waiting for him outside. Snake descended the stairs and ran to the egress. He quickly punched in Meryl's frequency code. What? I'm waiting. Hold your horses, I've just about got it. The mechanism in the wall clicked on and whirred as the slatted door lifted and rolled into the ceiling. A blast of cold air wafted into the hangar. Do I get a gold star? Meryl asked. I'm impressed. Can you cook too? I make a mean Western omelet. I'll take you up on that in another time and another place. Now stay put. Right. She disconnected as Snake peered into the dark tunnel that stretched from the hangar to the outside opening. It was tall and wide enough for a tank to pass through. It was about 60 feet long and emptied onto a snow-covered field. He took a step forward. Snake, don't move! It was Mei Ling. Why not? Put on your thermals. He did so and immediately understood the team's concern. An elaborate mesh of minute lasers, unseen by the naked eye, crossed the tunnel horizontally. They each move up and down vertically at different speeds. Tripping one or more would certainly set off alarms. Or worse. Yeah, bwee! We got to the bwee. Campbell spoke. Snake, our intelligence from the kneecap report. Wait, what? Kneecap? Huh. Our intelligence from the kneecap reports that the loading ramp to the hangar where you are now has been outfitted with nerve gas. You could probably see laser trip beams that... I see them, Colonel. Then avoid them at all costs. The tunnel would seal off, the gas would be released, and you'd be dead in minutes. You always have such cheery news. Just giving you a heads up, soldier. They could hear the attempt in Colonel's voice to lighten the tension that had risen between them earlier. He wasn't having any of it. Snake didn't care for the way Campbell was handling the mission. He liked being told everything there was to know before going in, and the Colonel hadn't leveled with him. There were still a lot of things Snake didn't understand about the undertaking. If Jim Houseman really was overseeing the entire operation, it was possible that the Colonel didn't know all the facts. Snake supposed he should give Campbell the benefit of the doubt, but he wasn't going to. The thermal goggles clearly delineated the laser beams. The first one moved at a fairly slow speed. It was a simple process to wait until the line was just over his head, then slip under it. The second one was much quicker, and was no more than 2 feet away from the first. It also had an erratic vertical pattern. It didn't just go up and down, it went up a little ways, then down a bit, up some more, down a lot, up even higher. It was unpredictable. Snake had to stand completely straight and pause until the beam was nearly touching the floor. Before the laser rose again, he stepped over it and walked forward out of harm's way. The mesh configuration continued for another 30 feet. The up and down patterns were more complex as he progressed. The intervals between lasers also varied. Some were close together, and others a fair distance apart, to give an intruder a false sense of safe passage. Snake punched Meryl's code on the codec. What? She said, feigning annoyance. Sorry to bother you, but while you're up in the security system, can you find a way to turn off these stupid lasers? Sorry, Snake, I already checked. There's no way. You really do have a level 5... you really do have to have a level 5 security card, and the only place you can turn them off is there at the door. Okay, I was just checking. You'll make it through, okay? Don't worry about me. I won't. I'll meet you at the storage building. What? I said I know my way around. See ya! Meryl, I told you to stay put! I changed my mind. Don't do something stupid! Sorry, but this is the only way I can find out if I'm cut out to be a soldier. I gotta get my hands dirty. See you there! And she was gone. Great, that's all I need. It turned out she knew another way to get to the storage building. He was going to have her hide. But first, the task at hand. Right. Snake studied the patterns of the next 3 lasers and determined that he would have to traverse the closest 2 without stopping in between them. They were only a foot apart, and as much as he watched his weight, he wasn't that skinny. The problem was that when one of the lasers was at its height, or at a height over his head, the other one was at thigh level and moved too quickly for him to slip between the 2. He would have to crawl under both, and had a mere 2 seconds to do it. He crouched, studied the pattern for another few moments, and then lay parallel to the beams. As soon as the second laser left the floor, Snake rolled like a log, clearing both beams, quickly jumped to his feet, then leaped over the third laser. 2 more to go. These crossed each other. One was at the top while the other was at the bottom, and they met in the middle. Snake waited until they parted, then he ducked, lifted one leg high, and hurtled over the bottom beam. He was clear. The icy wind was strong at the opening, and massive drifts of snow covered the field. Maneuvering through the deep stuff would be slow going and ponderous, but he had no alternative. And somewhere in the blinding weather was a deadly armored tank. Dun 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 dun. That's chapter 9. That's chapter 9. We got a little bit of time left on the clock, so let's go back over to EDF and see what's going on. Thanks for watching, everyone, so far. Let's play some video games.